Spring has arrived, and today we're visiting homes with breathtaking gardens. First, garden designer Butter Wakefield invites us into her marvelous Victorian home in West London before leading us through her enchanting garden and setting the table for a luxurious lunch. Then we step inside the art-filled sculptural home of interior designer Amy Hirsch, where a lush outdoor sanctuary awaits. Next, interior designer Lisa Furtado welcomes us to her stunning home and gardens in California's Sonoma wine country. Finally, we take you inside the legendary Grey Gardens with Liz Lange. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Butter Wakefield. Welcome to my home in West London. Please come in. Hi, Homeworthy. My name is Butter Wakefield and you're in my home in London, West London, Shepherd's Bush to be precise. I've lived here for almost 32 years. We bought the house when I was pregnant with our second son, Jack. And so I've lived here a long time. We bought it together when I was married to my English husband. He's now not my husband, but I'm still here, which is a blessing because I love it here. And all four children have been raised here, and it's rather a special spot for me, and the garden particularly. So this is my front hall. It's got this wonderful Cole and Son big leafy palm wallpaper, and below the dado rail it's got this sage and onion little green paint, which I'm absolutely wedded to. I think it's really fun. And then this big black and white linoleum floor. And I think the floor is the thing that started first and has remained. We've had various changes throughout the house, but the black and white has always been sort of the thread through the house. And it's kind of fun because it's a big format and it's easy to maintain, and it's hard wearing and bomb-proof, basically. And then up the stairs, I sort of carried on this, when my husband moved out, I sort of changed the stair carpet and found this really fun black and white stripy stair runner, and I painted the handrail shiny black. So, I just kind of made it really as black and white as I could. So this is kind of the hall. And here, I've got some black and white floral botanicals, which I absolutely love. They're all different. They're antique, and it's really fun to view them as you go up and down the steps. So I rather love them. In this little space right here as you come in the hall, there are several clever things, I think. One, the floor mat, the size of floor mat is extra oversized. So lots and lots of filthy feet can fit onto here, which is great. And then a radiator cover, I think, is always so useful. And I've got antique bowls and to put my, lots of stuff in. Tape measure, always tape measure. And then here I've got this lovely big antique mirror, which kind of bounces the light around. And a double set, two hanging lanterns, which I think is fun because typically you would have just had the one, wouldn't you? But a friend of mine, a designer friend of mine, Bertie Fortescue, said, no, let's have two here. It'll just elevate everything. I do notice there's a missing light bulb, which is really annoying. And then I found these incredible, they're wooden deer heads and antlers. I think the antlers are real, but the deer heads are wooden. I think they're Austrian. Really don't know, probably 18th century, maybe. And then I've got these wonderful yellow gilded plates by an artist called Freya. And when I light the candle in the evening, when I've got people for supper, it does reflect the light so beautifully. It's really, really fun. And she's so clever. And these are sort of running deers too, so the sort of deer theme kind of, continues. And then across here, on the other side of the wall, which is nice, you can see in the reflection, are some rather colourful modern art. And this one, this big, expansive yellow, I was very reluctant to kind of get on board with the colour yellow. I really love this sort of bold, dark, sort of umbery yellow with a sort of flash of orange running through it. And then this is picked up by another artist called Sharon. And they're both alive, and I love collecting artwork that from artists who are alive and well. So this is fun. So it kind of breaks up the green, adds color as you come in, and creates a sort of sense of fun, which I think is rather important. So this is my sort of hallway and upstairs, and so from here we'll go into the drawing room. So here we are in my drawing room, which is a lovely, big, gracious double drawing room. The house was built in the 1870s, and it's sort of late Victorian, early Edwardian. And what's really nice about this house particularly, is it has an east-west aspect. So my front garden at the front of the house is east-facing, and my rear garden at the back of the house is west-facing. So morning light and evening light. So I feel like I'm really blessed with the best aspect, particularly as I'm a garden designer, and aspect is really everything when you're designing a garden, and it's the first place you start. So maybe I should talk a little bit about myself. I'm an American, and I've lived here for something like 37 years or something. So most of my adult life I've lived in this country and not in America. But I grew up in a very small farm in Maryland, outside of Baltimore. And it was a very rural upbringing. We played in the barn and in the streams, and hardly ever saw, I hardly ever saw my parents in the summertime. It was blissful, bucolic joy. And we had ponies, and so we did sort of pony camp and a little bit of fox hunting, and so it was a marvelous upbringing. And then from there I went to university and ended up in New York, where I worked at Christie's. And when I was in New York working for Christie's, which I absolutely adored, it kind of saved me, Christie's, because it was, as a sort of farm girl, it was so full of eccentric, wonderful people. And of course, selling the most interesting, the best of the best, and it was not just pictures, but it was paintings and silver and rugs and jewels and furniture. So I got such an incredible exposure to very beautiful things, which has stayed with me forever, ever since. And then when I was living in New York, I met my English husband, and that is why I'm here still today. So that's a little bit of background. But it's been fun. When I arrived in this country, I started working at Colfax and Fowler, which really was a really lovely follow-on from Christie's, actually, because that was sort of the beautiful things. And then Colfax, of course, is interior design. So it helped me understand how to put a room together and how to choose colors that were complementary and contrasting, and taught me about scale and texture and color and form and composition, which of course has helped me hugely in my garden design business now. But there's more about the room itself. So the black and white theme continues. I've got, this is a dyed cow rug. It's not a real zebra. But the black and white ticking is Ian Mankin. And then the walls are a wonderful color. It's a Farrow & Ball color called Lamproom Grey, which kind of sets everything off so beautifully. And again, of course, more green and white. This is a fabric by Raoul for George Spencer, which I really love because it's so sort of bold and geometric. And the blinds are nice. I really love the sort of filtered light, and I like having them when it's really sunny, quite low. and it makes it all nice and cool in here in the summertime. So that's good. And then there's a lot of color. I love color. I've got these bold patterns here, for instance, and on the orange chair are all manual canvas, and those two chairs there are manual canvas. And what I love best about this room is having all this kind of bold and bright colors. I know it doesn't suit everyone, but for me, it's, as I said earlier, I really love color. And this gallery wall is an example of, you know, how I just kind of, all the colors I feel like are happy together and go. This is a very beautiful picture by a man called Erdely Knowles, who was sort of in the Bloomsbury set. And my ex-husband gave this to me when our first child, Zoe, was born. So it's a very special picture. And then I've just kind of added to it over the years. Every time I kind of finish a big project and I feel it's gone well, instead of saving my money, I might spend it on a bit of art, which I feel is lovely because it gives me pleasure every day and I can see it all the time. And it kind of reminds me that the hard work is worth, you know, it's worth all the blood and the sweat, sometimes the tears. So this is the sort of first half of the drawing room, and it's got a gas fire, which is great. So I sit here in the mornings and do my tapestry. I've got a really ugly light, but it is really good. And this is what I'm working on now, which is a lovely auricula pattern by Kay Fassett, who's fantastic. And these are both Kay Fassett vegetables, a cabbage and a cauliflower. And the thing about tapestry, I feel as a business owner quite a busy, stressful life, and having a minute to do tapestry kind of on Saturday morning really helps kind of settle me and calm my nerves and reset me for a happy, kind of relaxed weekend. And these two cushions here are also, these are both Kay Fassett too. I seem to understand his colors. I do change some of them out, though, I have to say. I make them even brighter than he does. So bit crazy. Wafer has just joined us in the drawing room, and Wafer kind of really does understand that he's not really supposed to be up there, don't you? But because it's a film day, maybe it's okay. He's a border terrier. He's about 11 or 12 years old, and it's him and I. We live together here. So he is my bud, and I'd be lost without him. So, I mean, but really naughty, he's up there, just saying. So flowers, hugely important for me to be able to pick flowers. I grow orange colored tulips in the spring, specifically to bring in here and cut. And I love the color orange, in case that was unclear. And so orange and yellow and pink are three of my favorite flower combinations. So I like to put tulips together in those sort of rich tones to bring inside. But more about the room. I mean, this end of the room is kind of slightly more summery, and this end of the room is a little bit more wintry. Here's a great picture that a friend of mine, Kirsty Withers, painted, which I absolutely love. I mean, it's full of incredible purples and yellows, and she's got wonderful use of a palette knife, and her sense of creating a very beautiful landscape seems to be something that she does beautifully well. So that's one of hers, and as is this one above the fireplace. So this end of the drawing room is slightly more, it's more wintry somehow, we feel. It's got a real fireplace, which is lovely. And something that I love about this room are the shelves. I love shelves. I think shelves are a wonderful opportunity to put stuff on. I love collecting bits of china. As you can see, this is a rather comprehensive collection of pink luster, and I love a Staffordshire dog. So I've got lots of Staffordshire Spaniels about the place. There's another one hiding behind the orange lampshade. And my choice of color and my love of color has slowly developed over the years. And my love particularly for orange is probably a recent phenomenon, probably in the last 5 years. So I started my foray into my fascination with orange by painting the inside of the bookshelves orange first. And then slowly I've just added more orange as my sort of confidence and love for it has grown. So this is a very sweet slipper chair that I got from my friend Joanna Plant. And I covered this in this wonderful orange mohair. It's kind of a burnt orangey color. And then I put a rather lovely contrast fan edge on it in a sort of red color, which I think is really fun. And it's just a great little chair that you can pull up. I can pull it up over there if we need extra seating, or here. And then I've got these two puffs, one here and one there. And they are great for additional seating, you know, really lovely to sit by the fire. And I love them. They're terrific bits of extra furniture. Lots of the chairs in this room are old. That's an old chair, and this is an old chair. And the two in the other side of the drawing room are old. And I love mixing old and new. I think it makes a much more pleasing and interesting composition, furniture-wise. And you want to set out, you know, your seating areas so two people can sit comfortably and have a conversation, but so can 6 and then 8 if you need to. And I think it's really nice to have tables nearby. And I love an ottoman, and it's again another surface to put things on. So this has got a lovely old antique tray, which is an ironwood tray. I think it's called ironwood, and a wedgwood plates. And I love having stacks of books and candles, and you know, I just like composing tabletop, you know, ottomans, for instance, and then just flowers, more flowers everywhere. So you can't really have too many. Again, I love to collect things. This is sea glass that I've collected over the years. I've got 2 big pots of them. We spend our summers on Cape Cod, and you know, I just love to, you know, comb the beaches and find sea glass. And there's another glass of it there, and it's always a good walk on the beach when I, you know, come home with a little handful of sea glass. The other thing that I want to talk about quickly before we leave the drawing room is the 2 lamps in the window. They're rather special. I found them in an antique shop on Great Island on Cape Cod, and they were there for a couple of years. And I thought, if they're there, if I go back and they're there still, then I'm going to have to bring them home. So I packaged them up and shipped them home. Honestly, it costs more to ship them home than the lamps themselves. But I think this sort of mauvey orange glass is so particularly beautiful. And in the morning, when the sun kind of shines through it, it casts this amazing sort of mauvey orange glow across the drawing room, which is rather special. And then my friend Rossi DeRoog made these lampshades to go with. So yeah, one little added extra, which I think makes this sort of table kind of come to life. If I have to describe my style, my sense of style, I guess it's pretty clear that I would call myself a maximalist. I'm also particularly a color. I think I'm quite traditional though too. I know that there are a lot of colors in here, but it's quite a traditional setup here. You know, there's not a modern element to be found. So I'd say quite trad and full of color. And I love to layer things. I think that's what makes a room really interesting. And collecting things on your travels for your home, I think is one of the nicest things you can do to bring the home to life. And I think it's the found things that you stumble upon in antique shops on your travels are the things that really are the most special. And so I do try to keep a beady eye out for all sorts of fun things. Like I have this little collection of Staffordshire cow creamers, which I'm absolutely mad about. And I've got, you know, a little herd of them. And I just think they're so sweet and charming, and it helps that they're also orange and cream. So they kind of amuse me. And then I love to put flowers in old jugs and pitchers and containers, because I think the container is as important as the flower arrangement. So this is a lovely old chintzware jug, and this is a really pretty old pink luster jug, which is very unusual. This size and this pattern is so unusual. So I was delighted when I stumbled upon that. So it just makes it, I think it makes the home interesting. And then this container here is a new potter who I discovered when I stayed in a lovely PR moment in Tyne, England, which is in the countryside in Oxfordshire, and he has incredible color. I think he uses color so beautifully. So there are 3 there on that table. There's 1 here full of these flowers, and then there's a little collection of them on my ottoman in here. And I think it's really nice to combine old and new. And I think I don't ever have any problems doing that. I think some people are like, oh gosh, it's a bit of a, and I just mix it all up. I think it's really fun, and it makes for a really interesting home. So I love that. So on we go to the kitchen. So on my way to the kitchen, there is a little downstairs loo, which I think might be something to take a little look at. So again, it's a tiny, tiny room, and I put a nice kind of toit de jouy style wallpaper in there. And then I just covered the walls as much as I could with pictures. So when you're in here, you've got something nice to look at. And again, an opportunity to have some shelves, and a cupboard which sort of hides the loo cleaner and the loo paper. And then shelves above, which I enjoy kind of fiddling about with. Again, more dogs. You can see my little collection here. And birds. I'm also really keen on birds. I do love birds. I love garden birds. I like feeding the birds. And my pa loved to feed the birds. And so I'm very keen. And then I have a little collection of nests that I've found in my travels that have fallen on the ground always. I would never pluck one out of a tree. But I have some lovely old birds' nests up there too. So again, it's a real mixture of style and color and pattern and form. I've got some birds here, but then I've got some sort of ferns and a giraffe, and then a lovely, sweet little collection of dogs here, and some, so I think, whatever you want to put up. So it's kind of fun. Here I am in the kitchen, and please excuse the ugly dog crate and the pile of hideous things on top, but this is a home and it's part of it, and I thought I could move that, but I'm not going to because I can't be bothered. I don't have enough time. I was much more focused on the flowers for the table and the table itself. So this is kind of the beating heart of the home. It's probably the beating heart of every home, I imagine, but this one particularly, the black and white floor runs through from here and into the conservatory, which is over here. But the kitchen's always been such a happy place for us as a family, the 4 children. The black countertop also sort of mimics the black everywhere else. And when we bought the house, we didn't have enough money to put hanging cupboards above the countertop. So I just had the idea that I would just set 2 and cover the walls with black frame prints. So the black has been a theme that's kind of runs throughout. And I think I'm so pleased that it worked out that way, because I think it's so much nicer not to have the walls kind of overwhelmed with hanging cupboards. And it was very much the fashion then. Now it's all sort of all open shelves, isn't it? But it was very much the fashion to have big, clumpy, heavy cupboards above, but we couldn't afford them, so happy result. So lots of botanical prints on the walls in black frames. Some of them are literally just postcards. I think this one's a postcard. So anything that I could find that was floral in the early days, I would slap a black frame on and hang. And there's some butterflies and other bits and pieces. This is a particularly special bit of artwork by a friend of mine called Sarah Bowen, and it was a commission that I asked her to do for me. I said I wanted bucolic scene of the countryside with some cows to remind me of home. And there it is, she's done it beautifully. So I get great joy from looking at that every day. And she's, you know, she chose the color of the flowers for me and put the figs in, all the sort of mauvey purples that I love. And then another shelf, more shelves. I've got here's my collection of Staffordshire dogs, which I am very partial to. I think they just look so sweet and cheery, and they just amuse me and kind of keep me company, if that's possible. So here we are, and people always say, oh my God, how do you clean all this with the grease? And you know, you just take it all down and soap it down and put it back up again. So it's never bothered me, any of that. You know, you just give it a clean, and I'm not fastidious about it all being immaculately clean anyway. I think, again, like the crate, it's all about living in a home and having it work for you as the homeowner, and this works for me. So I you know, every now and then I think, oh, it's time to clean. So this is the cooker, and then of course my kitchen sink, which is a lovely big kitchen sink, looks onto the garden, which is a very happy place to spend time. As you know, you know, the mother of 4, there's been a lot of time spent at the kitchen sink. So it's nice to have a really beautiful view. And as a garden designer, I often think about the views looking from the inside out into the garden, and how important it is to create interesting viewports and sight lines and focus and focal points. So at the end of this run down my kitchen door, which this is kind of a fun door too, just by the way, it's a sort of barn door, which is really helpful when you have a dog. So it can be open, but he can, you know, he stays in. But this is kind of the longest axis, and if you're standing at the front door, you can see all the way through and down the hall, across the garden and to the back of the wildflower meadow. So that's rather magical, I think. That's something that I care a lot about, is the view from the inside out, and try hard to create those magical moments for my clients as well. Kitchen table, just quite average, I'd say, but rather nice. It looks good laid and unlaid, and I've got this wonderful Penny Morrison stripe fabric on the benches. I had chairs here originally, but I found the backs of them got in the way and kind of created too much confusion on the sort of cleaner lines. So this is better for me. I think some people don't like sitting on benches, but I don't mind. I'd much prefer to sit on a bench and not have a great big chair back in the way. So yeah, this is kind of where a lot of happy memories have been made, which is great. And then at the end, sort of asymmetrically, we've got these two rather dark painted units. The tall units in the kitchen are this sort of lovely red, kind of mahogany red color. This is a color called Arras by Little Green company. And then I wanted to kind of create some amusement by putting pink with it, red and pink. I think it's kind of a fun combination. And weirdly, this plant is the same. So he can, she's welcome to the party. And then below the black countertop here, the inside of the wine rack is pink as well. Again, just to kind of create a little lightness and amusement and a combination. A sweet little picture up there, which I absolutely adore. It's just that red and pink again combination, which I think is so pretty, with a bit of green, my favorite thing in the whole world. So this is the kitchen, and it's been this way for a very long time. So these are the new additions, but it's been white and green and black for a long time. So bravely, I just quite recently painted these two things. So I'm very pleased. I think it adds a sort of richness to an otherwise rather more sort of clean look. The children were not at all convinced. They're like, "Mommy, don't do that." I'm like, "No, I've got to change things sometimes." So I imagine you might wonder how on earth I got the name Butter. And it was given to me a long time ago by my father when I was a baby. I was round like a butterball. Fortunately, the ball bit dropped. But I've been butter ever since. And it's kind of a funny one. There was an awkward age when I was about 12, and I was like, please, no one call me butter anymore. And you know, when you're so self-conscious, when you're just sort of entering your teens. And I was riding with a really lovely magical trainer, and he said to me, when I said, would you mind calling me Elisa? And he was kind of the love of my life. I had the biggest crush on him. And he said, I'm not going to ever call you Elisa. I will only ever call you Butter. So you're just going to have to get used to that. So I just thought, well, okay, if it's good enough for him, then I'll hang on to it. And it's just followed me. There were moments when I got to Christie's in New York, and I thought, maybe now I should be Elisa. But all it took was someone to call me Butter, and they're like, wait, what? That's your name? We want to call you Butter. So I have never really been able to shed it. But in many ways, there are not many of me. So I feel like it's kind of served me well in a way. I never have to say my surname, which is Wakefield. So I only ever have to say Butter. And Butter is actually even my business, you know, Butter Wakefield Garden Design is my business name too. So that's how I got that name. As you can see, there's more of this lovely pottery by a man whose name I can't remember, but I will remember eventually. And lovely flowers. The table's not laid yet, but I think that might be something that we can do together once we've been in the garden. So we'll do that after that. So from the kitchen into the garden, two steps down, which is lovely, not too much. Again, my door, which I'm going to talk to you briefly about because I think it's rather special. It's a stable door, which I spoke about earlier. But what we did, which makes it rather lovely, is it was a bit of a small opening. You can see the door itself is quite small, and it felt a bit diminutive. So we put a lovely big surround around it, a timber surround with lovely big generous moldings and sort of fluting. And then we put a bit of a lead flashing on the cap and painted it this lovely color. This is Farrow and Ball downpipe. So the whole exterior, the woodwork on the windows and doors and conservatory are all painted dark, which I really love. I don't really like white windows. I don't know why, but I prefer them dark, and I think this is a really nice color. So I have a small circular table here, which seats 6 comfortably. They're set for 4 right now. And here are some of my pelargoniums, which I've grown from cuttings. They love it outside, so as soon as it warms up and the fear of frost is over, they come outside. And then this is just an old urn of succulents, which I find quite amusing because they have these fabulous flowers, which I think are kind of crazy. And terracotta pots the whole way around on the terrace. I find that if you choose 1 or 2 different materials, both inside and out, but mostly outside, I think you have to be a little bit more controlled, actually. So I've got terracotta, metal. This is old reclaimed York stone on the ground, which I think is very beautiful and pleasing and kind of timeless. And then the only kind of crazy colored thing are these wonderful old antique buckets, which I found. And they had all my tulips in them in the spring, and I've just sown in situ some zinnias here, so they're well underway. I did that last week, maybe, in between crazy moments. I just thought I've just got to sow my zinnias. So here they are. I hope they do well. And then I've just got this rather comfortable, sort of overstuffed. It's lovely here. 2 benches, 2 3-seater benches and a coffee table. And tables, again, this is my love for a surface. I love to have full of pots because I think when you look out from the inside and you see a table full of interesting pots that change seasonally, you really create something special to view. And when it's raining and filthy, which it is often in this country, a table full of pretty pots is something quite special. And then the upholstery, again, I love mixing different. This is lovely Rapture and Right, which I had a little bit left over of. And then this is just a very pretty cotton and a ticking. So, and then I combine everything together to kind of create, you know, that's a different stripe from that stripe, and then this sort of ties the two together, and then the big cushions in this rather pretty floral, green and white floral. So more green. So off we go into the garden. I'll just talk you through how it's laid out first, and then we can go have a little peek around. So I've got two big borders, quite traditional, mixed borders, we call them in this country, either side. They're about 1.6 meters wide, which is about 5 foot, I think, something like that. And they're punctuated and rather formal, quite English, punctuated by these U pyramids. I've got 4 running down this side and 3 running down this side. I lost one at the end, but I've kind of thought it's fine without it. And then I inherited this beautiful old apple tree and this incredible big Magnolia grandiflora above us, which I have a love-hate relationship with. I love it in the wintertime because it's evergreen and it really creates a magical kind of canopy. And in the summertime, I kind of hate it because it sheds its leaves all summer, literally from this moment onwards for about 3 good months. I come out here and it's littered with leaves. So that kind of drives me crazy. But the good thing about it is it keeps the conservatory really cool. And it has wonderful flowers for the night flying moths. So it's great. The flowers are great for the pollinators, which is very important. So the borders down each side of the garden are mixed with deciduous shrubs. So I've got lots of Hydrangea Annabelle and Hydrangea paniculata limelight and at the back. And then running down the front of the border, I've got a combination of geraniums and geum, totally tangerine, and euphorbia, and a variety of other sun-loving perennials. This is the south-facing border, so this is the sunny border. So this will, I can have all the sort of things that, like catmint and nepeta, that really love the sunshine. And this is the north-facing border, so you'll see that it's got much more sort of foliage, foxgloves and ferns, things that really appreciate a shadier aspect. So, and then again a big hydrangea limelight and some roses that kind of, the sun sort of in the summertime sets in that corner. So the roses on this very far corner closest to the house get enough sun to perform beautifully. And then down the middle of the garden, I've got my wildflower meadow, which I am absolutely devoted to because it's so rich with nectar for the pollinators, and I know I'm doing my very best for them by having this and having long grass where the insects can grow and hibernate and overwinter and get what they need in the springtime. Really makes me feel great. So, and it changes every year. So here we've got the red campion, and I threaded also through some allium along here, which is this sort of purpley onion sort of round shaped bulb. So the bees and the pollinators love this. So this is sorrel, and we've got the white daisy, which I can't remember its name right now, which is very odd because I know it so well, and fennel, and lots of grasses and buttercups. This is our native buttercup, which is something that I really hope I really am trying to cultivate the yellow flower that to run the whole way through, because I think it's so pretty and might be a weed for some, but for others it's just I don't know, it's so countrified for me, the buttercup. And then I'm also in here, I've got Verbena bonariensis. I've got that threaded through the whole of the meadow, and this will sort of dance about. It will sort of grow to this height and it'll sort of dance above, and the bees and the butterflies love it. So it's all about creating, you know, pit stops and feeding stations for lots of the bees. And you'll see here, there's a great big fat bumblebee. you know, right on the red campion here. Can you see that? So I just think it's magical. I find it, there are bees and butterflies everywhere, but I find this the most captivating. It kind of soothes my soul, as it were. So this is the meadow, and it's easy. I was lucky enough to get turf. You can buy wildflower meadow turf and just roll it out. What it really wants is very thin, poor soil, so you don't have to enrich it or prepare it at all. So it's really easy to establish and create something rather special. So I try to include a lot of this in my clients' gardens too. I'm always suggesting. And then down this side, they're just kind of going over, but in front of me on my boundary are some climbing roses, which I am particularly wedded to. Got a series of, I think there's the pink one at this end is the Generous Gardener, and then there's Madame Alfred Carrier to start with, and then this is Blairy number 2. Sadly, they are just going over, but they really do add, they kind of create this sort of lovely sense of English countryside, which I think is so important. And then here we are, so we have some foxgloves too. Again, these, you'll often see the bees going right up inside the foxgloves. Oh, there's one that's just come out. So foxgloves are great for the pollinators. So is this little geranium phaeum. This is a really early flowering perennial, which loves the shade. It's kind of peppered through the wildflower meadow too, and I just leave it because it's so early to flower. And when the pollinators first come out of hibernation, they're desperately hungry. So early flowering plants are really good to include in the garden. And then, oh yeah, I've got some bramble here too. It's a weed. But we put up with all things. All comers are welcome. So in the wintertime, I really try not to tidy the garden too much. I leave the leaves. You know, there's this whole new movement about allowing the wildlife habitat to remain. So I will cut the meadow midsummer, probably early July, down to the ground, and leave it so that for a day or two to allow the seed to drop, and then I'll clear all the debris away, because if you leave the debris, it's nitrogen rich, which the wildflowers won't like because they want a thin, poor diet. So I will cart that all up and bag that and put it in my compost, and also get it collected by the green waste man. And then I leave it, then it will grow back. It'll probably get to about this high in the summertime, by the end of the summer, and then I just leave it to overwinter. So it remains kind of tall and grassy and lovely over the winter. And I pretty much do the same to the borders. So if you come with me, back behind these two screens, I've got my sort of secret hiding place back here, which is where I like to spend my time hiding from everyone else. Here I am at the back, very, very back of the garden, behind a sort of set of 3 trellis screens covered in this gorgeous evergreen climber called Trachleospermum jasminoides. And it's highly scented and great for the pollinators. I also have it climbing up the back of my house. And what I've learned over the years is that my bedroom, which is above the kitchen, is open, is exposed on 3 walls. So it's quite cold. And the track at the back of the house has created this real, in the summertime it's much cooler, and in the wintertime it's much warmer. So it really is extraordinary how plants can actually help. It's not extraordinary at all, it's a well-known fact, but plants really can help insulate buildings and keep things cool in the summer and warm in the wintertime. So that's a good reason for clothing your house in lovely climbers. And this is kind of my sort of little workstation back here. I've got lovely old metal buckets, which I'm very keen on. And these are all my bulbs from the spring that are now going over and dying back. So it looks terrible back here at the moment, but that is kind of part of the life cycle of the growing world. And in here I've got lovely herbaceous perennials and foxgloves. This is one of my favorite perennials called Naudia macedonica, and it's a scabiosa in the scabiosa family, and the bees and butterflies love it. So, as they do the foxgloves. And here's more terracotta. So I've got a sort of series of terracotta pots here, some with summer flowers, some with bulbs, and then this is a summer flowering planting combination here with Nepeta, Scabiosa, and then Acamilla mollis and a little geum. And my compost bin, which is very good, and just a little table, and my shed, of course. Not very beautiful, but you have to have a place where the ugliness can be, really. So if you come with me, we'll go back down this side of the garden, the sunny side, and we can look at things from this view and this angle. So this is my focal point, which is my lovely basket, and it's a wicker basket. It's vintage, and a lovely antique dealer who I get lots of my clients' furniture from thought that I should have it as a reward for being such a good patron. And it's a grape harvesting basket, and in the spring it was full of tulips, and now I've self-sown or sown in situation some little seedlings of nigella, which is love and a mist, which is a sweet little summer flowering annual, so I'm hopeful that that's going to kind of explode in this frothy sea of sort of blue haze in a little moment's time. And then this border, again, it's got some lovely roses in here. So this is Bosco Bell, which is so pretty. And then this little one here is I think this is, I don't know what that is, actually. I couldn't tell you. But that's Bosco Bell, and this, look at this is so pretty. Look at the color of this. I think this one is Charles de Mille, just going over. So beautiful, but I might be wrong. I can't really, I'm not very good on my roses. I mean, I am, but I'm not. And then again, climbing roses along the boundary. This is a lovely big, another member of the scabious family, Scabiosa. This is Cephalaria gigantea, and this gets lovely and tall and has creamy colored pincushion flowers like the Naudia behind the screens, and the bees love it. Again, full of, look at this little moth on here. You've got to come and zoom in on this. I mean, that is so exciting to me. So we're providing nectar for that little friend. And again, my yew pyramids, there was box in the garden, boxwood, but it had the blight and the caterpillar. And so I bit the bullet and took it all out and put the yew in, and I have never regretted that decision because it's absolutely maintenance free. You have to clip it, of course, but there's no spraying, there's nothing to do except for enjoy it. And in the winter time, when all this will have died back, the yew pyramids are the thing that kind of hold the whole garden together. So it's the form in and amongst the chaos, and they kind of disappear in the summertime a bit, but in the wintertime they really come to their own. And I love a clip shape in a garden. I think if it's all frothy and pretty, it lacks a certain amount of style and form, and these provide that. So they're really, I wouldn't be without them. So I might pick a flower or two and take you inside, and maybe I'll show you how to condition cut flowers from the garden, particularly wildflowers, because if you don't condition them, they go over really quickly. They just wilt. Oh, look, here's a lovely big fat bumblebee. The most interesting thing about the meadow is this is red clover. Do you see that? There are so many different varieties of bumblebees, which I'm only learning about now. That one is very yellow and not black. Sometimes you see them and they're very black and white, but that one is just kind of a yellowy one. When I pick the wildflowers, which I tend to do, I'll pick to a set of leaves. So this is again the red campion, which has gone over, but I quite like this. I think the seed head is just as pretty as the flower. So I'll pick to a pair of buds here. And then for some reason I always turn it upside down, I don't know why. No gathering, no lovely, beautiful basket, sadly. But so, and then I'll just I'll pick at a set of leaves and turn it upside down. I feel like it kind of prevents any of the goodness from washing down the stem. And then here's some geum. This is totally tangerine, which you saw inside. I've got a lot of it inside. And I grow this because I love orange so much. You can see it's sort of slightly running down the border. It's just going over, but I plant things in my garden that complement the colors in my house. So the orange of the geum really works well in my drawing room and in my kitchen. And I think it makes sense to me to have, and I do ask my clients when when we're discussing color and color combinations, what the rooms are going to be decorated in that look onto the garden. And it's a really lovely way to have that sort of link between the outside and the in, just having one or two colors that complement each other both inside and out. So I always ask that question. See, here's a very different bumblebee here. That one's much more yellow. I mean, look at them. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to pick a geum as well. And again, I go right down to a pair of leaves. I love the fennel too. Don't you love the fennel? So I've got a bit of fennel running down the border too, which I think is so frothy and pretty. And the flowers of fennel are great for the pollinators. So yeah. And I love how it kind of ebbs and flows and kind of undulates the whole way down. I think it creates a really kind of, there's a lot of movement. And when there's a little gentle breeze, it kind of, it's very captivating. So maybe we'll go inside and do a little bit of flower arranging and tablescaping. That sounds like a good idea. So I'm coming back inside. And I'd love to step by step talk you through how I lay a table, because I think it's something that I really enjoy doing. And but before we get embroiled in that, I'm just going to boil the kettle because I want to teach you how to condition the flowers. So I'll boil the kettle and then we'll come on to conditioning and we'll lay the table together. So I always start with an underlay because I think a cloth on top of a hard table is a particularly luxurious feeling. So I have this very patchy old underlay, and I think you can get them exactly to the same dimension of your table. So yeah, this goes down first. I love to add lots and lots of layers and texture and fabric to the table. And I think it looks really lovely when it's layered up. And then I've got this lovely old bit of Indian fabric that I've had forever, which I love to kind of put on top as well. So again, creating just extra layers, and it's kind of reversible. So sometimes I use this side, and I might use this side today because it's so bright and sheery. And my tablecloth, you can see, it doesn't quite fit the length of the table, but I really don't think that matters. I feel like it's all about not making it too perfect. I don't know. I feel like our lives are so concerned about being perfect that when it's not, I don't think it matters. That's my philosophy anyway. So that's the sort of layering, the first 2-3 layers. And then I think it's fun to add a mat as well. Why not? So laying the table for 6. And again, color-wise, I think yellow and green is so spring-like and pretty. We're in May, and I think yellow and green just feel kind of right. So they go on. I love to entertain, but I do it in a very relaxed way. There'll be food on the counter. which I will have. I do like to cook, so it's very rare that I buy food for a dinner party, but it does take time. And when you're sort of busy gardening, I find it's hard to come up with the right amount of time to do all these things. So I spread them out, but I do nonetheless. And I think a lunch party is often one of the nicest ways. And so spoiling theirs, it just feels rather a little bit naughty and a little bit decadent having lunch with friends. But anyway, so I've got my tablecloth and now my sort of Indian patchworky cloth on top. And then the next thing are these lovely white ceramic plates, which I think are really lovely and fun, quite chunky, but great. And what I really like to do is layer. So I also have these lovely antique plates. So I'll put a stack of them on the table, even if we don't use them. I'll always put a stack on the table because I just think a stack of lovely old plates looks so pretty. And I've got some pretty green ones as well, so they'll go on top. Each one is different, which I find so kind of beguiling. I just find them so pretty and colorful and delicate. And I think, again, having some old things makes it table look a bit more special. And then I have these lovely stripy napkins, which I think are so spring-like. And again, they don't, there's a bit of yellow and green in them, but I just think they're so sweet. They've got sort of daffodils and again, they don't really match, but I think they all kind of go. So I quite like a very eclectic table that is colorful and bright. And yeah, so they're here. And the stripes are all going in different directions too, which is rather amusing. Clearly laundry. I don't know who's in charge. So that's that. And then I might do the flowers next. So I arranged these this morning, conditioned them, and I think when people arrive, I think it's really nice to have it, rather full and busy. And then if it's too much and you can't really see one another, what I might do is I might just sort of move them to the side. But I think when people arrive, it's really nice to sort of have the vision that you want of the table. So I have these crazy stripy cups, which again, I think are just so fun and add another level of kind of pattern. I love the stripes. So there's so many different patterns here. There's stripes and stripes, the floral, more stripes, some daisies, and to me it's beginning to really feel interesting and there's a lot of detail which I think makes it a nice, really outstanding place to be. And then I've got more color, I've got these rather gorgeous pink and orange Marani glasses. And I think they add, again, just more pattern and more color to the table. So I would probably serve wine in those and water in these. And then cutlery, and I have some rather fun bamboo handled cutlery, which I think is, again, a lovely contrast, to have a bit of weightiness to the table, not all light and pretty, and but the brown I think is very pleasing to the overall design of the table. And tablescaping really is a thing, isn't it? I think it's almost as fun as coming up with the guest list and cooking for your friends. I think laying a table or setting a table, as you say in the States, is a really lovely thing to do. I get a lot of satisfaction and joy from, you know, sitting at a beautifully laid table, but also doing it myself. So I think it's a very nice thing to do. And don't you think the brown goes so well? I think the brown really sort of makes it feel less kind of girly, as it were. Then I've got these crazy glug jugs up here, which I have to carefully extract from this ridiculous setup I have. But they are my water jugs, so I'll fill these up. And I love to put lemon and fresh mint in the water. I think that's just a very simple, nice way of making the water, or even fresh cucumber. I think fresh cucumber in water is a really nice, tiny extra treat, which I think is well worth doing. So that will go there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much how I would do it. I would have serving dishes down here at each end, and I think it's really nice to have everything on platters that you can pass to one another around the table. I think it creates conversation and camaraderie, and it's a nice way. And then you can take what you want and the amount you want, and you know, there's sort of no pressure, as it were, to, if you're presented with a plated up plate of food, it's often difficult to sort of get exactly what you want to eat. So yeah, so I think that's kind of a joyful way to lay the table. So now that the table's pretty much ready to go, I think it'd be really nice to just briefly walk you through conditioning flowers and why it's important to do so and how you do it. And it's very simple, but basically I've boiled the kettle and I will now pour that into just a very bog standard Pyrex jug, just a couple of inches deep. And then I'll have something to put the conditioned flowers in. It's important that they transition from the boiled water into their final resting home. So this is just a little green bottle which I collect. I've got lots of lovely old bottles here which I think are really fun, and I like adding those into the table as well as the sort of bigger arrangements. I think it's fun to kind of have varying heights of flowers on the table. And then I also think it's nice to add some candles, which I'll do at the end. So here we are. We've got our boiling water and we've got our freshly picked little blooms, and it doesn't take long for them to start going over. So you have to, I do it quite quickly, and I often do it while I'm in the garden. I'll set this all up and with my cup of coffee in the morning on Saturday, and I'll condition them right away. So it's really important, so this is, you can see it's already looking a bit tired, is to take any of the green leaves off the stem, and then you plunge the stem into the boiled water, into the boiling water, cut below the water level, count for a few seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then in it goes into its jug. Again, remove the green, and it's a good idea. I learned recently not to pull the green leaves off the stem. It's far better to break the green leaf off, because by stripping the green leaf down or pulling it down, it often weakens the integrity of the stem. So it's better just to twist the leaves off the stem and not pull them down. And then that goes in there. And then here's a very beautiful bit of grass that I picked from the meadow, which I absolutely adore. So again, just cut the foliage off, the leaves rather, below. If it's slightly woodier, I would count for, instead of 5 to 7 seconds, I might count to 10 to 12 seconds. And this is slightly, just ever so slightly woodier. So, but see, that to me is very pleasing, very simple. There are 3 different things in there. And then I've got the seed heads from the red campion, which again I really like the look of. It's different from the flower itself, but I think it's equally pleasing. And then I kind of approximate the height of it. I think I need it a bit shorter than that, so I'll cut it a bit shorter out of the water, and then I'll cut it to, I hope, its final height in the water. And there the air bubbles are rising, so I know that this is working. And it's good to cut flowers on the angle, the stems on the angle, because then they have more surface area to draw up the water, to keep them happy for longer. I have a lot of good gardening gear because I'm, I at it all the time. And Milwaukee, which is a Japanese brand, make these flower scissors, and they're wonderful. They hold their sharpness for a long time. They're very, very pleasing on the hand and to handle. And yeah, they're ergonomically good. And yeah, I like the brand a lot. You can see I've got a pile of them here, the Milwaukee with the yellow handles, and they're really, really, and they keep their edge really well. So they're good. They're good to. They stay sharp basically. So I'm a great fan, and I also have their gloves too, the Milwaukee gloves. They're really good too. So there we go. So that's just a little, and I might add a few of those to the table as well, threaded down the middle. And then I think no table is complete, even if it's lunch in the daytime, without a candle and a candlestick. So these are lovely Astier candlesticks, French, and with great big yellow. And again, like flowers, I think candles should be at varying heights. I think you want some tall and some short to create sort of gentle sense of movement. And I don't think they have to be set out equally. I don't think they have to match. I don't think they have to be, in any way, shape or form perfect. I just think choose them. And I would never in a million squillion years ever have or use or choose a white candle when you can have a yellow candle or a pink candle or an orange candle. So I think color, again, I have banged on about it a lot, but I think, that is pure joy to me. And with the green of the glug jug and the plates, I just feel like it's just an extra layer of prettiness. So there we go, the table. Homeworthy, thank you very much for coming. I think you've taken up quite enough of my time. I need to get back to work and back to my garden. The sun is shining. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to the art-filled sculptural home of interior designer Amy Hirsch. Her modern farmhouse stands out among the other homes in Coscob, Connecticut, as she built it to feel like you're stepping into a terrarium, with plants dispersed in each room and glass walls all around that peer out into the lush outdoor sanctuary. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Welcome, Homeworthy. I am Amy Hirsch, and we are really excited to share our home with you in Coscob, Connecticut, and welcome to our home. We are in my entryway, and it is the first part of welcoming somebody into our home, and we wanted it to feel like a little bit like a gallery. We have an incredible piece of art from Christina Watka, who she is an artisan from Maine, and I am a huge fan of pottery. So these are all clay pieces that go through a process of five different hands before that it comes to me. And we do this quite often in clients' homes, but here, what I love is that it just carries you through our space and it's very fluid. Our home, you will see, is like a terrarium. It feels like a greenhouse. I'm always surrounded by greens and plants, and I tend to them and I nurture them, and it's a huge part of our home. And then we have one of the biggest impacts of our home is this great piece by Jenny Boots, who is a fabulous photographer, and this is kind of our badass protector that takes care of us and watches over us. So as we shift through, we go into one of my favorite spaces of our home, which is our dining room. And what I love about our dining room is that it gets a ton of light, and it is a very eclectic mix of a lot of different pieces and has this organic component. One of the really fabulous things about our house is that we have these wonderful beams that are 200 years old that came out of a barn in Tennessee. So that was like a really big component to our home. And one of the very last pieces that we installed in our home, and we built our home from scratch about 7 years ago, is this hand-painted custom DeJournay panel. It's one of my favorites. And what I love about it as we travel through the house is that in the morning when I walk down, I'm able to see it. It's one of the first things that I see as I enter into kind of our spaces. One of the best things that we do in our design philosophy is that we love to mix things. It's the high, the low, and everything in between. So, we're looking at, always comfort first and foremost. I think one of the most important factors about our interiors is that it's approachable, it's livable, and our house really embodies that. So our chairs are Anthropologie, our table actually is Restoration Hardware. It takes a beating, it is a workhorse, but then we have really high-end pieces like the DeJournay and our Mark Phillips rug, which Mark is one of my favorite vendors that we have and that we use, and it has this tribal feel. And our home has this really casual, quiet elegance that is just comforting, super comforting. You'll see throughout our house that I really wanted emerging artists within our house. And this is a really fabulous piece that looks like a puzzle that's all made out of wood. And the DeJournay panel that is all custom behind us is hand painted, really spectacular. It's actually traditional for me. So my roots are, I went back to my traditional roots, even though we live in a modern farmhouse. One of the impactful things about our home is that we love natural light. And the natural light, as we travel through this big swath of glass, huge expanses of it, it's just, we never have to turn on the lights. We can see the green. This is the best time to live in New England. It's just a super peaceful place to be. And our home is our sanctuary. Our home, feels like a resort. We try, it's really hard to leave, to be quite honest. But everything within our home is all about the artisans that we brought in. And they're like my friends. I want to be surrounded by them. And it was actually a really difficult decision to decide which artisans I was going to bring in here, because when you design for most clients, you're designing for maybe bigger scale, larger expanses. And in this, you had to be really, really strategic about which pieces you were going to bring in because they were selective. And so our kitchen is the hub. Our kitchen is a space that I didn't want it to be like everybody else's. It's expansive, and when we entertain here, it just is easy and it's just inviting because you can be fluid between all of the spaces, and everything has a purpose when we designed our home. Everything has a place, we function well, we're able to clean up exceptionally quickly from gatherings, and we wanted a house that still felt organic, not a white kitchen, one where we mix walnut and black absolute and a black painted kitchen. I think my husband was mortified when I said that I was going to do a black painted kitchen, but it suits us and it suits the house, and everything just recedes and you're able to see the outdoors, and it's really just, it's the center of our home. We entertain quite a bit. We have tons of family, tons of friends that come in and out. So it's a really fabulous place to be able to do that. But when we designed the home, I also tried to use things that were a little bit different, right? This is our storage for all of our glassware. So it's not your conventional upper cabinetry storage. So this slides in. It's a great use because you get a tremendous amount of it. And I also wanted hardware in the places that it's exposed that it's different. So we did custom walnut and metal hardware and big hardware, not things that are itty bitty or tiny. Everything within our kitchen has a place and a purpose. I love a drawer within a drawer. It's kind of my go-to whenever we design a kitchen. So this is our drawer within the drawer. And it was super important for me to also utilize the walnut. So the walnut is inside all of our cabinetry, which to me, it's all about the quality. It's about a wood that I absolutely adore and is really user-friendly as we use it in different types of pieces, and was really part of the mantra of, I'm a big believer in distribution and how you do that throughout a house. So in our house, our furniture is wood, our table is wood, our credenzas are wood, our sideboards, coffee table. So that wood comes into play, and it's soft on your hands and it's easy and relaxing on the eye. And one of the best things that we have, which is slightly messy, is our pantry. Our pantry holds everything. And what's wonderful about the pantry is that we can close it down and it looks just like the rest of the cabinetry. So everything happens within the pantry. And so our kitchen really stays really neat and super, less fuss happens here, which is, I have to say, makes my life really easy, super easy. Everything is real. We have privets and we have different types of trees, and the dahlias came from my mother's garden, which she has an incredible garden. But we are constantly tending to trees and plants, and seasonally they come into our home, and I think that's my luxury, and I will say that that is my, it's my weakness, to be quite honest with you. The balance between our home is this organic approach and a modern sensibility. So the light fixture, which has structure to it, but it also has this organic component with the glass, resides over one of this great live edge walnut table that was done by Withers and Grain. And we are here all the time. We sit here, we have mostly our dinner is here. Our kids, we have 2 girls who are constantly coming and going. So the island actually gets used majority of the time. And these are the greatest bar stools because they are a mixture of walnut and rope, and everything falls through it if you have messy kids, which I have one of. But everything we also have is super durable. I think that is a key component to the way that we live. And we use our home. It's what I say to all my clients. I want you to be able to use your home because that's what it's for. And in here, we actually created a custom banquette. We did this custom channeling detail. Everybody sits here. It's a great place to read. It's a great place to do work. If I'm working from home, it's either here or in the dining room. So our house is super, super flexible for all of these spaces. The nice part about when we built our house is that we came with nothing. So we were able to start fresh and start with just the key pieces. So we actually live this way. We live in a very simple manner. Some people may tell you that I don't live that simply, but it's livable, it's easy, it's less fuss. And I think that we live with the things that are very important to us as opposed to just filling a space. And I think that one of the most important parts about when you build a home or you design a home is that you leave room to grow. Because with that, you can add in the plants, and seasonally the house changes, and especially in the holidays when you have a Christmas tree or you have other things, it becomes fuller. So what's lovely about our home is that we wore restraint purposely throughout our home just because we didn't want to live with fuss. I I'm going to take you guys into our family room. One of the fabulous parts about our house is that we have this double height family space that's almost about 20 feet tall. Again, has these incredible antique wood beams. The center beam is about 800 pounds. It was definitely not fun watching them put this up. But one of the other factors that's very cool about our home is our fireplace actually houses our staircase behind it. And one of the main things that when we built our house with our architect is that we said to them, we don't want to see our stairs. We don't want it to be in a prominent area, but we clearly need it. And the beauty about our staircase, that as we are over here, when it is sunny and when the light does travel through here, it becomes its own art installation. So the light in our house is key because it feels different all the time. And it casts these incredible lights, shadows, and movement throughout. So, and we also, when fabricating certain things like the fireplace, and what we did was we stained the rift oak in kind of this gray wash. And the interesting part about this is that the boards start and they gradate up, and they gradate into smaller forms and then into larger pieces. So again, you know, everybody says to me, are you gonna put a piece of art on there? It's really hard because the wood itself is so beautiful. And I think for me, when I use all of these different types of materials, it's important that they are seen and that they're exposed, and it's really beautiful. I mean, as you even travel up through the staircase, you can also touch it and interact with it, and it's really beautiful. This space is actually for our family. When we entertain, it's primarily in our kitchen and out into the outdoors. But in here, we have 3 dogs who I did not let stay here today. But we are always on this couch. Our girls are here with us. We watch TV. The TV's on quite a bit. And we love watching documentaries and different series. But the room itself is so cozy and it's so warm. And again, it has all of these different artisans and our emerging artists for the artwork throughout. So one of my favorite pieces, which is like art, is our coffee table. So our coffee table is made up from this incredible artisan out in Brooklyn, his wood furniture. And it actually is encased in resin with the walnut and a steel base. The metal is encapsulated within the resin, and so it looks like it's floating. This piece was one of the very first pieces that I selected when we built our home. I have to say that one of the most important facts about building a home, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity. I'm so grateful that I was able to hire the right people. My architect is Paolo Vicente, and our builder, Keith Manka. They really created this incredible haven for us. You can see that, you know, they were really strategic about the planning, and I think that most people have to remember that when you go through a build, you have to have the right people in place. So our architect, one of the most strategic things that he did was he took our home, because what was here was a knockdown. When he designed the house, he actually pulled the house 25 feet forward on the property. I thought that was crazy. Why would you do that? Well, when you get to see that our sanctuary, when we get to go out there, is just incredible. So we live in our backyard, and our backyard is just expansive. And we knew that when we were building a house and looking for a piece of property, we wanted an acre of land. And this is, it feels like you're so remote that you're someplace else. I love pattern, and I love, one of the other interesting parts about our home is that you will see snippets of pattern throughout. And the other part is that we really live in no color here, because the color is the outdoors, but all day long every interior designer is entrenched in color. So it was really important that our house was really, really tranquil, and that the pieces had interest, but was also very, very neutral. One of the interesting pieces in our house is this vertigo light fixture. It acts as a mobile and it has like a center source of light, but when the doors are open, it actually moves and it twists, and it gives you this volume that humanizes a space that is quite large in volume of height. I think all interior designers, they have this really great craft and gift that is different than how most people think. And when we designed this house, I didn't want what everybody else had, and I wanted a home that was really organic and different and unusual and a bit of a bit edgier than most, and one that just could live freely, and one that I didn't have to think about maintaining it. So, a lot of the pieces that we use within our house, they have this longevity. There's very little maintenance that has to happen in our home, and that was a key component of when we built our home. But I think it's funny when I gave, to be on the other side, building your home was a great perspective, because I was able to see that for my clients and go through that process with my clients and understand what it meant to be on the other side. So we gave a 1955 Mercury sled car as the inspiration for our home. And I have to say, our architect really felt that. He really understood that. It's edgy, but it's classic and it's unusual. As we kind of travel around the fireplace, what's really cool about our house is that we have these slices of windows, and all different sizes and all different widths and heights. And again, the beauty about these spaces is, in order to see certain things, is to not have too many other things impacting it. So again, we come back up to this landing. This is a little bit more curated for our family photos, which we take a lot of, and also just a landing zone. Up here, you travel through to my daughter's rooms, but we have, again, really unique artisan pieces. That also lies in the pottery. I love and am obsessed with pottery, and because it also houses like all of our flowers and different things that we want to use. But this piece is by Simon John. He's an incredible artisan that I found through ICFF, and what's lovely about this is that there's storage within here, and you can do this in different sizes. And so this was something that I thought was, again, created this organic component that was up here because it's simple. Everything, the walls are simple. The flooring is simple. That was kind of part of the intention as we travel through this upper landing that takes us to our primary suite. So in our primary suite, again, it is the distribution of the antique beams. This is what I call my decompression walk. I feel like I'm in a treehouse. I get to overlook my property, but everything in here is tranquil and serene. This is our sitting room that leads us to our primary. And one of the great things about here is this isn't a huge space, but you look like you are floating. And you're actually, if you come close to the edge, you literally are floating over the roof and over the entire yard. But what is lovely about here is that I actually use this quite a bit. I use this to read, I use this to take phone calls, and I actually work quite often up here. It's great light. You feel at peace when you're here. And again, there are really special pieces, artists, and unique custom pieces that we made. So that was the other part about our home, is rather than having pieces that are just store-bought, I wanted things that were really special and unique. So we made this daybed. We have an incredible upholsterer. I love mixing fabrics, so I love linen and this great charcoal cotton velvet. and super durable. Again, mixing different textures together and then creating this channel detail. It's super simple when you think about it, but really super custom on top of it. And then we have our Ben Ham, who we love, South Carolina. And so he is a fabulous photographer from them. And, there's things that when you're designing for clients, you fall in love with. Clients have certain things, you find a connection to them, you fill the space and want to be surrounded by that all the time. So the other part is that the ceiling is all of the wood. Here we went a little bit darker, but it's the same wood floor. And again, it just creates this really, really special, more intimate space. And as we travel into our bedroom, we intentionally chose no carpet in here, which is quite nice. But I have to say that every day that when I put my feet on the ground, I am so grateful. And I want all of my clients to feel this way. Because when you live in a way that there's just simple beauty, so our room is very simple, but again, crafted with all of this art around here, you're just more centered, I think. One of the most unique things about our home, and what I had said to our architect was, I don't want to get stuck at the end of our room, right? Most bedrooms, when you come through, there's one way. Ours actually rotates all 360 around. So we share a closet and it's just enough, right? And again, when you create from the ground up, you can really organize. And I think that being able to have multi-heights and, depending upon what you live with the most, the shoes kind of override other things, and everything again has a purpose. This is one of the greatest things that I think I've designed in a really long time. What's wonderful about this piece is that it serves for all of our storage, but it's also a great place for family photos, because in our home, we have limited space about where we put that, because of our walls are really full of windows. So the other part is my jewelry is kept here. It's something that is of ease. You can see it, you can access it. It's again about just creating a way of life that is kind of effortless in a way. Then as you travel through our bathroom, what's wonderful about here is this is where I truly feel like I'm in a tree house in a way. So our bathroom is made up of Nero Marquino marble that is in a herringbone pattern. We have this fabulous expansive window that is in here to let in all the natural light. And the best part about having a bathroom that you share is I find it important that when you're coming and going, you lead a kind of crazy life, it's a place to talk, right? You can talk in the morning, you can talk at night. I know that sounds kind of silly and sappy, but it's really important. And I think that that's, part of why we built our home was to be connected and to be connected to each other. So we live with more greenery and the eucalyptus, and it's all about health and wellness here on top of it. What I love is, again, the incredible textures that we used. So we used, again, the walnut mixed with the marble. And of course, we have gorgeous, gorgeous fabrics that feel like a spa. We are gonna head outside so that I can share with you our sanctuary. It is one of the most fabulous places for us to be, and one that makes it really hard to leave here. As we go outside, this is one of, I think, the gems of our home. And, the beauty too is this inside out living. Has this kind of California ease. This also opens up again, so which makes it really expansive. And when we are out here, nobody wants to leave. Friends, family. And I think that's one of the most grateful parts about being able to build something like this, is being able to bring everybody together. So there's also very distinctive settings within this space. One, and I have to say, they evolved over time. It wasn't as if we just finished the house and then had all of this furniture. This seating area came after we realized that this was a pretty big deck, and We wanted another place to come out. We have our coffee out here. We'll start with the drink out here in the afternoons and weekends. And then again, bringing out the organic component of the live edge oak. And everything we have out here is super durable. So we can sit a ton of friends around here. And then we have this fabulous lower level, which is our fire pit that we love, and that we really use this more in the fall and then early spring. This is kind of its own room outside, which we really enjoy. When we actually finished our home, there was still dirt. I said, oh my gosh, where's the pool? I should have did the pool. But it took time. And I think within that time, we finished the pool about a year, maybe 2 years after we built our home. But what I love about our pool, again, it's a black pool. Technically, it's black. Today with the sun, it's looking a little bit more like indigo blue. But I wanted something that was also different than most people had. And I wanted it to feel like a resort. I didn't want it to feel New England in any way. What's fabulous about being out here is that it's really about the sound. And so we have very simple plantings that happen behind the sun chaises and everything. So when the wind is blowing, it's the sound, it's just the rustling of the grasses, and it's just really super tranquil. But then what we decided to do was create this incredible pool house. And this is a reprieve from the sun, but it's also just a great place that we have a party, we entertain in. We read, we spend time out here watching TV, and this is open air on 2 sides, and this is another place of where we have our greenery. So it is just like its own little greenhouse within here, and it's just relaxing. And every detail that we created within here is just, I don't know, really special, super special. So the black is actually yellow cedar. It is the same material that we used on our garage. The nice part about this, it stays cool. So when it's sultry and super hot outside, this really does, it just is very cooling. So the other thing is that the nice part about here is that we have refrigerator, wine, ice, everything is out here because it is a little bit of a distance to go from here to the main house. But again, serving, entertaining, just kind of living. So it was really important for us to kind of have this storage out here. This is all made out of teak, so it can handle the sun and it can handle our environment. And again, another eclectic mix of furniture, even just a little bit more color out here. It's not much, but it's something that is playful and unique, and the orange and picks up on the wood and ties back into the house, and it's just it's like a resort. It really is a resort. So we're super lucky. I would say that in the plan, even the beauty about having an architect, and as you go through a master plan, which is really important, is being able to know what was down the pipeline and what was the future. So we always knew that we were going to do a pool and a pool house. It was just the timing. We actually started before COVID, and so we were super lucky. We weren't in the masses that, were kind of really having a difficult time to fulfill that. So we were really fortunate because during COVID, this finished and we were able to enjoy it and spend a lot of time out here. And then we also added this woodland garden, which did not exist. And, we wanted something that the beauty about also where we live is there's a tremendous amount of trails around, and we love being outside. We love being in the woods. So we added this woodland garden to kind of just feel more connected to nature and be outside. And again, it's no maintenance, which is really fabulous. It's overgrown and it's a little messy, and it's fine. It's okay. And, nothing here is pristine. Nothing in our home is pristine. And it's comfortable. It's easy. One of the very cool things about the pool house here is these LED rope lights. So they are waterproof, which is wonderful. They can be submerged in water. And the interesting part is that you can place, as we did this as like an art installation. So they swoop through, they overlap one another, and at night from afar, it's just really magical because it allows it to glow, but it's different, it's unusual, and it's not your typical light fixture. So, and the beauty about this light fixture is that you can do this in so many different ranges, and you just have to be creative about how you handle it. And, you know, I think that when you also pre-plan, one of the most important parts is, initially I started out as 3, but it needed more. So I think that that's the other key about when you get to build from scratch, you are able to think about all the different components and what is the best form for the space. And again, you know, this is kind of what, other than the structure itself, which is really very simple, it just creates another softness, right? There's a lot of angles, there's a lot of rigidity within the house because of the shapes of things, and this just adds another level of softness to it. A home is a place of center. It's a place where you come and you feel secure, where there's love and there's laughter, and, you know, a place that you just don't want to leave. And our home feels that way. And I am just beyond grateful that I can share this home with you and that we get to enjoy this every day. And it's just a little slice of our perfection.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you into the idyllic Sonoma wine country home of interior designer Lisa Furtado. The bright and lush landscapes surrounding her historic home provided the perfect backdrop for the interiors, which she infused with a soothing and layered color palette that feels right out of a Nancy Meyers movie. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hey Homeworthy, I'm Lisa Furtado, and welcome to our historic home in Kenwood, California, in the heart of Sonoma wine country. So the living room is the first room that you walk into from the porch. So there's no real entryway in this house. So we wanted to create sort of some sense of transition and entry. So we did a row of hooks here. We have this antique bench here just to throw things on. But in general, you just walk in straight into the living room. So the house was built in 1912, and for reference, that's the year that the Titanic sank. And for baseball fans, that is the year Fenway Park was built. It was a couple years before World War I, and it was also the time of the arts and crafts movement. So that was a decorative trend that started in Britain and made its way to the United States. And it was really this response and reaction to the Victorian era, which coincided with the Industrial Revolution. So at that time, there was mass production of goods and decorative moldings. It was sort of this more is more over the top style of Victorian home. So when that era had run its course, people were really craving a return to a more simplified way of life. And it was sort of the Marie Kondo era of its time, and were the same guiding principles that you should really only bring things into your home that are functional or that you find beautiful. So from that sentiment, the craftsman home was born. And this is a typical craftsman home in that it has a lot of the features that a craftsman would: the low pitched roof, large porch, high windows, wainscoting, and really all of these features are a way to bring the outside in. And this house has the original windows in many parts of the home with the leaded glass, and you can see the wave in the glass. It really adds charm to the home. One of my favorite features is the diamond-shaped grids on the windows. It really adds charm and character to the home. This room is fairly small as a living room, so we added this oversized mirror to really give the illusion that it was bigger. This particular mirror is from Anthropologie, and it's just sitting on the ground, although it is attached to the wall, but it just sits behind the sofa. We intentionally kept a neutral palette in this house because the house is so saturated on the outside. I wanted to feel like a rest for the eye when you came inside. So we have a lot of natural materials, neutral colors in here. It feels very much like the landscape of Sonoma. And Sonoma is very casual also. So I wanted to maintain that sentiment in the house. So this is not the main hangout area of our house. If we want to watch TV, we'll go in the carriage house where there's a large sectional in there. But if one of us is here, we'll pop on the sofa and watch television, or we'll put a game on. This is a frame TV, so it's meant to look like art, which is perfect for the space because when you walk into a room, the last thing you want to stare at is a big black box. So this works perfect. You can change the image, although we've kept this image for the last couple of years. Now I'll take you into the kitchen. So one of the first places during the open house that I went to was straight to this window seat. And I sat here and looked outside and really envisioned what the house could be. People that have been to the house have said that the house has great energy. And it's really the feeling that I got from the first time that I walked through the door. And it's hard to explain, but it's sort of like the feeling that the house had a peaceful soul and a happy past. And knowing that the original owner was a female poet and her sister was a established watercolorist, I feel like this house really has some great, strong female creative energy. And I've always felt this sense of stewardship to not only honor the history of the house, but to maintain its beauty and to bring it to its full potential. One of my favorite features of this house is the tall windows here. Now, before we moved in, it was just all sprawling lawn, which was fantastic, but we knew that we'd eventually put a pool in. And this is great because I can be in the kitchen and peek out the windows and see the kids playing in the pool. Another feature I love is this butcher block top on the island. And it's a white kitchen, but the butcher block top really gives a sense of contrast and really breaks up the space and gives it depth and dimension. We do cook a lot in this house because we entertain a ton, but most of the cooking is actually done in the outdoor kitchen, which I'll show you later. This banquette seating here is one of my favorites. I love to sit here and have a cup of coffee, and this is where I love to work from home. We wanted to keep it fairly casual and not have anything too precious in this house. So this table is a reproduction, but it's unsealed, so you can see it's dinged and has water stains and the whole bit. But it's really a space that I wanted people to feel comfortable in and be able to relax. These chairs are antique bentwood chairs, which I love, and they have that kind of rustic, worn feeling with the leather and the nail head trim. And then this banquette seating here can fit so many kids or adults, and we play Monopoly and games around it. And of course in the winter we'll eat here, but in the summertime we typically are outside enjoying the Sonoma warmth. So as you can see, we have lots of cut flowers around the house, and these are all from the yard. And depending on the season, I'll cut flowers and bring them in. But these hydrangea I cut in the fall and dried, and they dry really well and preserve really well. So this is a picture here of the couple that built the home. Their names were Ned and Nell Wilson, and they owned the Kenwood Mercantile, which was across from the train station in Kenwood, and that was really the hub of Kenwood at the time. Nell was a well-known poet and published poet, and she was friends with novelist Jack London, who wrote, as you may know, The Call of the Wild and The Valley of the Moon. So Jack London and his wife Charmaine were storied to have come to the house many times. And I know this because the previous owners, who took wonderful care of the house and they made some beautiful upgrades, they also did a historical report on the house. And I also know this because last year, a man knocked on the door and told us that his mom was born in the front room over here. His grandparents were Ned and Nell Wilson, who built the house. And so, of course, we were excited to talk to him, and he was excited to tour the house, and we showed him around, and he showed us where he'd play outside as a kid. And he came back with 2 huge boxes of photo albums. And we spent hours going through these black and white original photos of his grandparents and his parents and people in front of the house and around the house. And it was so cool to see the house in its original state. I think for any homeowner of a historic home, it's such a gift to see a house in its original state, but especially as a designer, that information is priceless. We're gonna go into the butler's pantry now, which is a small space, but where all the magic happens, the caffeine and the cocktails. But this is one of my favorite little spaces to come in the morning, and the light shines through the windows, and make a cup of coffee and start my day. Let me bring you in this way and show you this little, we call it the French bathroom, but it's just this little closet bathroom that it has high ceilings, so there was enough space for cabinetry and a light and a tiny little French faucet and sink there. But that's useful for a guest to have. This space is sort of the breezeway, and I don't know what it was originally, but I call it my artist studio, even though I don't paint much. But we have this antique French easel here that I just keep art on. And we have kind of a collection of some original oil paintings and some prints and some photography that I love. But this bay of windows is just amazing because you can walk in here and the light floods in and you can see the entire yard from this space. So I'll bring you upstairs to the attic bedrooms. So in the attic bedrooms, we kept the original floors, which are over 100 years old. As you can see, they are beat up and scuffed and super creaky, but I thought it added to the charm of this space. So one of our main goals in the house was to be able to bring people and entertain and maximize sleeping space. So in this room, we have 4 trundle beds that all pull out. So we can really sleep 8 kids or adults. We've had some adult slumber parties in this room. Can sleep 8 people in this space. I knew I wanted to do something graphic and fun in this space. So we took the wallpaper all the way around. And this antique rug I had held on to for literally years and didn't have a place for it. And as soon as we put this room together, I thought this is going to be perfect in here. So I love the coordination with the rug and the wallpaper, and love these woven hanging pendants here on each side of the bed. They have little on and off switches that the kids can switch them on when they're reading or playing a game. So we brought the wallpaper all the way around the room, but left this wall out. And the reason for that is because eventually I'd like to put a bathroom up here. A lot of these older homes, the attic spaces didn't have plumbing on the second level. So this is really a space where the kids have a blast having slumber parties and bringing lots of friends. But it would be really nice if there was at least a sink and a toilet in here so they could have their own bathroom up here and not have to go downstairs in the middle of the night. So this is all the original wainscoting here. It's a very small bedroom. The mirrors on the closet really do help to visually expand the space. So I wanted to do a gallery wall that sort of drew your eye up. So this is a collection of a few original pieces, a piece that I got at Goodwill. This is actually one of my favorite oil paintings. It has a sort of dark, moody vibe. And one of these is actually a piece that was done by my daughter, who was 7 at the time, that one up there. But we had it in our house for a couple years, and I thought, I need one more piece up there. And it was the perfect size and the perfect geometric layout that really finished the space. For clients, when I'm doing a gallery wall, I typically lay it out and cut out pieces of paper in the size of the art that we're working with, or we do it on SketchUp and do a rendering. When it's my own house, it's an evolution of putting things up and down and around and just working it until it gets right. When you're in your own house, you kind of have the luxury of time. So this collection really is just that. So trial and error and lots of nail holes. Not anything that I would do in a client's house, but in my own space, it worked. So the chandelier is one of my favorites that I've used in projects before, and it's from Made Goods. It's made of these tiny little beads and sort of has this fabric-like lightness to it. The windows are original with this diamond grid, and all of the hardware looks to be original as well. And some of it's in sort of a precarious situation here. And to open these, some of them you kind of have to give a nudge to, but it is really the most charming thing about this house, these original windows. And I love waking up in the morning and seeing the view through those grids. It just really adds character and charm to the home. We don't have window coverings on the windows because I just did not want to cover anything up, and there's just not a whole lot of space to work with on the molding flanking the windows, so we just kept it open. So we're going old school, just going to sleep in the dark and waking to the sunrise. These pieces here were sort of in the process of the gallery wall, and I had these sitting here for a while, and I really love these particular pieces. They just didn't work in the gallery wall, but now I keep them here because it just seems like sort of this romantic thing to just have your art on the floor ready to be hung at any moment. So this house had these openings here, and I am not quite sure what they were for, and I didn't know what to put in there. And then I found these antique pieces of luggage, and they fit perfectly and sort of went with the style of the room. The house was built in 1912, the year the Titanic sank, so this is sort of a nod to the Titanic. I don't know if that's creepy or cool, but going with it. So I'll bring you into the guest bathroom now. So this bathroom looked very different, although I really wanted to keep the original clawfoot tub. It's not the most functional, but it's so beautiful. We painted the base the same color as the wainscoting that we painted. It's this dark charcoal gray. And we refinished the inside of the tub so it looks as good as new. The diamond grid windows there are original windows again, but we painted them the same deep charcoal color. We replaced the vanity and the mirror, and we added this wallpaper. It took a while and a few different tries to find just the right wallpaper, but I really love this one. And it has these intricate vines, and it looks like there's grapes hanging from some of the vines, and it really just does bring that historic feel to the space. So the floor, I don't know that it was original to the early 1900s, but it was here, and it's marble, it's beautiful. So we kept the marble floors. We refinished the bathtub. I really wanted to keep the original clawfoot bathtub, so we just painted the base and had the inside refinished. So the window is original, we just painted it dark. It has the same diamond grids as many of the other parts of the home. We just added the little cafe curtain there. The lights are all new. The mirror is new, the vanity and the marble top is all new, but really designed it in a way that felt authentic to the home and felt historic. So let me take you outside because this is the space that we've done the most work and that we spend the most time in. So the backyard is where we spend most of our time, and it looked very different than it does today. Although there are some original features out here. The tank house is one of them. And in Sonoma County, you'll find lots of these tank houses. If you pay attention, they are like relics in Sonoma. And we have the original well here. The tank houses, before modern plumbing and electricity, they would use windmills to pump the water from the well up to a tank and use gravity to push it down to the pipes. One of the main draws of this piece of property was the large, expansive lawn. But we knew with the warmth in Sonoma that we eventually wanted to put in a pool. We were a little concerned that we were going to eat up the space of the lawn, but as you can see, we still have a ton of lawn space. And the kids are out here all the time playing wiffle ball and throwing a football around. And we put an in-ground trampoline at the far side of the lawn, which was a bit of a negotiation with my husband because he's a little freaked out about trampolines, but this is more for me than anyone else. But we positioned the pool on this side of the property for a couple reasons. It had to have a certain setback from the well and the septic. So we positioned it on this side, but I always envisioned the kids jumping on the trampoline and running and jumping into the pool. We also built this arbor above the fence, and I had another vision of this arbor full of pink roses that would frame the pool. And in the spring, it's done just that. It's so beautiful to see those roses pop and just create this frame on the pool. They only last 3 or 4 weeks, but those few weeks are glorious. This is a place that we entertain a ton, and when we designed the space, we had that in mind. So we sort of have these zones on the property, one of them being the pool space and the sectional over in the corner, the seating by the pool. We have the table and umbrella here, the fire pit with the chairs surrounding it. We have a dining table there, the long antique dining table with the hanging pendants above the tree. And we also have cornhole and ping pong over on this side of the house, and the carriage house, which I'll show you next. The outdoor kitchen is one of my favorite spaces, and it probably took the longest to design. My husband really wanted a all-encompassing kitchen where he could do all the cooking and not have to go inside to the kitchen. And there's quite a bit of distance between the outdoor kitchen and the indoor kitchen. So we really did maximize the outdoor space with all of the appliances that you would need to cook a full meal. We have, starting in this corner, a beer tap. We have refrigeration here, a freezer, storage, spices, of course, a barbecue. We have a side burner here, beverage center, ice maker, trash, sink, dishwasher. A lot of people asked us why we would put wood cabinetry in this kitchen, but it's actually stainless steel. So it's super durable. The cabinets are by Brown Jordan in partnership with Danvers. And I wanted to create this sense of connection with the house and sort of this cottage style of cabinetry, which you don't typically see in an outdoor kitchen. One of my favorite features is the tile backsplash, and it really does connect the color with the color of the house. The countertops are porcelain made to look like poured concrete. And poured concrete, I love the look of it, but it's very porous, and even if you seal it, you're still gonna get the watermarks eventually. And the porcelain, once it's installed, is very durable. It's a little tricky. You'll have to find a knowledgeable fabricator to do the install, but once it's here, it's pretty much bulletproof. We installed the television in the direction of the pool because I had envisioned the kids and adults watching TV and games from the hot tub and from the bar stools and from the lounge chairs. So we really do utilize the television out here mainly for football and baseball games, but occasionally we'll do an outdoor movie out here, so it's really fun. The fire pit is a space that we spend a lot of time into the night, and we'll sit around here, have great conversation. The kids will often play guitar, and even if there's no one sitting around the fire pit, we'll turn it on because it really is a nice ambiance to be able to sit in the hot tub and see that glow of a fire. Let me take you now to the pool house. So when we built this space in 2020, as you can remember, doors and windows were really hard to source at that time. There was a lead time of like 18 to 24 months. So we had to get a little bit creative. And I found these antique bifolding doors that I feel like fit perfectly and really did the job of connecting the new space with the old space. So again, this was a space that we wanted to maximize sleeping space. So we have queens on the bottom, twins up top. So this can sleep 2, 4, 5, 6 kids, maybe 7 if they're small. And we have the bathroom here. The tile is one of my absolute favorites. It's this glass and marble mosaic, and it really does just speak pool house. So this structure here is what we call the carriage house. I don't know what it was originally, or if it was original. I'm assuming not because it has a foundation. But this was a space the previous owners had used as an office. And this was a great opportunity to create a space for the kids and especially the teenagers to hang until the late wee hours of the night. So we have a large sectional, the pool table here. The kids just come and hang, and it's a space that stays really cool also. So the kids will just sort of duck in here when the weather is really warm. But they'll play video games. These built-in cabinets were here. I think the previous owners put them in. I didn't love the color particularly, but we painted the entire thing this really dark black navy color, and it really did make this beautiful contrast with the paint. And we did the beadboard ceiling, hung a really large pendant, and just created sort of this cool casual vibe for the kids. The kids are 12, 15, and 17, so this is really the ideal hangout for them. They can come in here and play pool, play the guitar, play video games, wrestle, do all the things. And the kids, especially the teenagers, will stay out here till the wee hours of the night, and they'll close the door and feel like this is their own space. There's nothing too precious in here, which I wanted to create this casual vibe that they could feel comfortable and feel like they weren't gonna break anything. And so we love this space for them and for us to be able to close the doors and not hear anything into the night. This is the room above the tank house, and in my opinion, it's the best bed in the house. You really feel like you are in a tree house when you're up here. It has this beautiful view of the pool. You feel like you're in the trees looking out these windows here. It's, again, very casual. The bedding doesn't match, but I did want to keep it that cool, casual Sonoma vibe up here. This was actually my daughter's Zoom classroom when the schools were closed down. We Zoom schooled from this house, and she set up shop here, and this was her classroom. This floor lamp was one that I picked up from an antique store. I love the intricacies of the iron. This oil painting here also, I picked up at the same antique store at the same time, and I just love the way the colors play with the rest of the room. The rug is another antique, and it fit perfectly between the beds. And again, we use this space to maximize sleeping space. So we have the 2 beds here, and also one mattress underneath that bed there that we can pull out. So 3 kids can sleep up here. You may be wondering what's at the bottom of the tower. It's just a little shed and storage for garden materials and the like. I won't show you inside because I've made quite a mess of it. Let me show you one more thing out here. It's the outdoor shower. In the summertime, people will come out here and actually prefer the outdoor shower to the indoor shower. This outdoor faucet is one that I actually found on Amazon. It was the end of the project, ran out of money, and I thought I'd just get this as a temporary fixture. And it has turned out to be one of the best plumbing fixtures in the house. It has a few different settings. The shower, the handheld, you can wash your feet. And there's also a light here, so people can come around the back, switch the light on, and take an outdoor shower under the stars. I want to tell you about the porch. Typical to craftsman homes, this house has a very large, deep porch. And I always wanted a porch swing as a kid, and I knew from the moment that we bought this house that I was going to put a porch swing in. I love this particular one. It's by Charleston Bed Swing, and it really just does give that southern vibe, along with the rocking chairs. And I love potting plants here in the spring and the summer. So this is my happy place. First places that I come with a cup of coffee before I make my way to the workspace in the banquette if I'm working from home. The house is sort of this periwinkle blue color, and the house was painted blue by the Cundy family when they lived here, and it was painted sometime in the 40s or 50s. And when we moved here, people would ask, are you going to change the color of the home? And I said, oh gosh, no, I wouldn't dare. The house has been the same color for the last 70 or 80 years. So we decided to just really lean into the blue, and that's what we've done on the exterior. So we're making periwinkle cool again in the most classic and timeless way, of course. This house really feels like home to us because we have honored the history of the house and kept a lot of the original features, but brought in our own sense of style. So it really does feel like ours.
Today on Homeworthy, we're bringing you an inside look into one of the most iconic estates in East Hampton, New York, Grey Gardens. You may recognize this famous home from the popular 1975 documentary. Liz Lange, creative director and CEO of the women's fashion brand Fig, purchased the property in 2017 and has since embarked on a glamorous restoration. So join us as Liz gives us a tour of her family's magnificent Hamptons estate and its world-famous gardens. Enjoy!
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Liz Lange. Welcome to Grey Gardens.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
So we're sitting here at my house, Grey Gardens, which is a house that we purchased from Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn. Ben Bradley is most well known as being a longtime editor-in-chief of the Washington Post, figured prominently as somebody that broke the Watergate scandal. I'm really dating myself here. And Sally Quinn was his wife, and they cut a very sort of wide circle in Georgetown and DC. They were extraordinarily social, and they also entertained at this house nonstop. Had people like Lauren Bacall, Michael Douglas, many Kennedys. I think the reason that Grey Gardens is so famous is because in the 1970s, a documentary was made about this house and its inhabitants, and it really took off and became kind of a phenomenon. To this day, there are so many people I know who can quote every line from that documentary to me. What made it so intriguing was that this house, a very beautiful, very stately house, really almost steps from the beach in East Hampton, was owned by Jackie Kennedy's aunt and uncle and cousins. But what had happened was somehow Jackie's aunt, known as Big Edie, and her daughter, known as Little Edie, were living in this house together, just the two of them. They had fallen on hard times. The Beals had divorced, the money had gone away, and Little Edie and Big Edie were living in a house that the town of East Hampton was actually on the verge of condemning for very good reason. So for those of you that have seen the movie, you may know. The attic was filled with raccoons. Most of the rooms were falling apart. If you took a step in them, the floor would actually disintegrate underneath your feet. There had been a few fires in the house, so many rooms were just completely destroyed by fire, not repaired. So this really captured the imagination of people worldwide, because the Kennedys were so glamorous and so well known that they would have an aunt and a first cousin living in such squalor, and squalor is an understatement. Really kind of just got everybody talking and thinking, and people kind of became obsessed with Big Edie and Little Edie. If you've seen the documentary, you know they're interesting characters. They say funny things, and they live here and seem somewhat unaware of the fact that they're living in these extraordinarily reduced circumstances. So this house, the way it looks today, has been a labor of love, first by the people that bought it from Little Edie, Ben Bradley and Sally Quinn. They restored it originally, and they're heroic for doing so. And then 30 years later, they sold it to us, and we embarked on a second major renovation. And my inspiration when we were renovating was really to bring it back to the house that it was when the Beals, this very prominent, very social register family, came in 1923 and purchased this house as their weekend house. They were members of the illustrious Maidstone Club. They lived in a beautiful apartment in New York City, and this house was absolutely gorgeous. And then so much had happened to it that sadly it was far from gorgeous. And I really wanted to take it back to those early years. It was first built in 1897, and the years really from 1897 probably till around 1950, the first 50 years of this house, when it was really a stately, what they would call beach cottage in East Hampton. And so hopefully that's what we've achieved here. But that's really what the house is known for, and it never ceases to amaze me, the amount of fans this house has, the amount of people that gather outside our gates on a daily basis to get a peek at it. It's quite something. And I feel, I feel a certain level of responsibility, that on the one hand, when we came in to do this renovation, I knew we needed to make this house our own, and it needed a massive renovation. But I'd like to think it was more of a restoration, because I knew that there were so many people out there that would be very upset if this house didn't sort of retain its original look and feel to a certain degree. I mean, not the 1970s version that you see in the documentary. But so we were very mindful of both modernizing it for our family, but also being very respectful of its history. And that's really what informed our massive 3-year renovation, restoration, kind of taking the whole thing from the top work that we did on this house. So this is the entry of Grey Gardens, probably one of the most iconic rooms in the house. When super fans come over, the first thing they want to do is get on that staircase and start waving those flags like Little Edie and marching down those stairs. So this room, it was very, very important to me that we kept this room as intact as possible. Obviously, we renovated it completely, but we saved every piece of molding, stored them, and then, and restored them and then put them back. And where we couldn't, we created the same so that it would really feel familiar to all those Grey Gardens fans. We wanted to have fun with the house though. I mean, as you can probably see, I'm a huge, huge fan of color. So I thought just doing this leopard wallpaper in blue going all the way up to the second floor landing would be fabulous. And I really like the mix of things. So you'll notice I've got this Fornacetti sort of chest of drawers mixed with some kind of wild chinoiserie, with a monkey that I probably found on Dixie Highway in Palm Beach, where I also have a house. And then there's more mid-century modern going on over here. We had an artist paint these floors. They were the original wooden floors to look kind of like a black and white traditional, but punched up. We kept the banister exactly as it was. Again, because the staircase is so iconic for people that are familiar with the documentary, which of course so many people are. So it was just about restoring it, but it was not about changing it. So that's really, the bulk of what goes on in this entry room. I think the most exciting moment is for most people this staircase. I also reached out to a bunch of different artists that I liked and knew of and asked them to imagine art for Grey Gardens, some kind of take on anything, whatever just came to their mind. So one woman painted this for me. She's a British artist, and that's meant to be Little Edie, I think, in the garden. And we've scattered them throughout the house. I'm a fashion designer, and mixing colors and prints, it's like everyone has a little superpower. That just comes really naturally to me. I think of almost every color and every print as a neutral, and I just treat them that way. And it usually works. So I guess I would say I'm not afraid of color or of print at all, as you can probably tell. Sometimes I go too far, but I like it. And I think if one loves it and puts it together, it will work. You can sort of see this Fornacetti chest of drawers has within it, you can see a cheetah walking, and there's also a lot of leaves. And of course, it's kind of ombreed with the different levels of golds and browns and yellows. And it's unexpected. It's not of this time period, so it's kind of unexpected. And I like things that are unexpected. I think expected is boring. So I really mix it up. You wouldn't expect Fornacetti with mid-century modern necessarily with chinoiserie. You wouldn't necessarily expect it all together, but I like to do it that way. I actually collect this sort of mid-century Italian modern glass. So this is a pink grouping, and I thought it was kind of fun to do a pink grouping alongside a pale blue grouping. And you'll see it throughout the house because it's something that I've always collected that I love. I'm constantly scouring eBay and First Dibs and Cherish and all those sites. And there's this little boutique downtown called The End of History, and they have tons of it. So I'm a huge fan. And you'll see my little collections everywhere. Clearly, I'm a crazy person. So everything in this house is logoed. Even the umbrellas, you can't see, but these are GG, which is our house logo, done in bamboo, because I adore bamboo. So these are our house umbrellas, and you'll see other logoed items as we make our way through the house. I'll point them out. I even have matchbooks in different sizes, all with the GG logo. Some have our flowers around it, some are simple logo without the flowers. Logo, logo, logo. I love it. So here we are in the living room. This is the room, I often spend time here during the day, but it's really used a lot at night. We have a lot of dinner parties here. We love to have our friends over. And typically after dinner, after we're done, we will retire to this room. We'll sit around, we'll have more drinks, coffee, tea, desserts. And so I wanted this room to work really, really well for large groups, for small groups. So I kind of divided it in half, although it can also just be one. It's two halves and it's also one. So on this side of the room, of course, we've got a full seating area, all these little tchotchkes that I picked up along the way. I am a, nonstop shopper. So when I'm not shopping for clothes, I'm shopping for objects and tchotchkes and things to put around, and whatever I like I just buy, and I figure I'm going to find a home for it. So that's sort of what happened here. You see some animals. I'm really into animals. Some shells. I love this vintage lobster plate. Hydrangeas are kind of the flower of this house. We have so many of them. During the height of the season, our front porch and our front driveway is just an explosion of pink and blue hydrangeas. It's really fabulous. And so we kind of picked up that theme wherever I could within the house. So I often keep hydrangeas here. This painting actually was interesting. We have a painting in our New York City apartment that just says chrysanthemum that we love. It's in our living room. And we had the idea of asking that artist to make one for this house that had a flower that reflected the flowers that we see around Grey Gardens. So he came up with hydrangea. He does his own typeface, he does his own coloring, and he made this one for us. And I just think it works really perfectly in the room over the fireplace. So this is just one little seating area. I love this guy. He's kind of crazy, and I did find him in a little antique shop on Antiques Row, Dixie Highway in West Palm Beach. Amongst my shopping, and I loved it. I also found these fake tusks. They are not real, but they're very 1970s to me, the way people used to decorate, and I love it. So this is just one fun seating area. Then as we move along, I had the concept of this room being divided by sort of a round settee. So you can sit on it, you can face either direction depending on who you're talking to, and we do. I had seen an image in a magazine of a house in the 1960s, and they had an unusual potted plant on top of their settee, so I copied that. So these two flamingos are mid-century modern, also picked up at an antique show along the way, possibly in Paris at their flea market, where I did a lot of shopping for this house. In fact, I bought this pair of pale blue ceiling fixtures at the Marche Pousse in Paris. When I started this room, my first concept of this room was that the walls would be white, lacquered white, and that most of the fabric would be one of my favorites from Quadrille, which is Arbre de Matisse. It's an iconic print. I actually have it in my bedroom in New York in a different color. I'm highly consistent in my taste. So we did this brown and white, and the whole room kind of got built around it, that the room is basically brown and white with little touches of pale blue. And because the house is old and traditional, I certainly wanted some of the furnishing to be traditional, but I also wanted to juxtapose it with more modern things. So, for instance, this mid-century modern coffee table that I found, I want to say John Salabello, who has a store out here and does fabulous mid-century modern, always has the best curated mid-century modern antiques. And I love the scale of it. I love that it's low. I like very low furniture, very Halston. So it just feels very cozy. I mean, half the time when a lot of people are around, one of us is just sitting on the floor here. So I wanted everything to feel cozy, fun. I'm wild about this huge, oversized elephant planter. I found it in an antique shop. Sadly, his tusks are broken off, but we're about to have that repaired. And every summer I just plant it with orchids. And it's just so funny and unexpected. And I love that. I love things that you won't find anywhere else, that aren't in everyone's house. So certainly I've never seen an elephant planter like this before. Another thing in this room that's nice is it's become a home for a collection of paintings I have and drawings. I love this artist, Frances Hobby. For those of you, I'm aging myself, but I grew up with dolls by somebody named Holly Hobby, and Frances is actually Holly Hobby's daughter. So she paints all these fabulous girls that in some weird way remind me of Little Edie or just feel this house to me. So I've got a huge collection of them. We had to move two over to this wall because we have normally a Matthew Wong painting here, but the Matthew Wong is on loan at an exhibit in Amsterdam. So we have more of these girls here by Frances Hobby. Just one detail that that you'll see throughout the house, but since we're here, is that hardware was extremely important to me. So, all of this hardware, we selected and we customized for the house. We did it through Nan's Hardware, and it was very important that we had these more old-fashioned way of opening and closing these French doors. And French doors were something that when we bought the house, it had more windows than French doors. And what was really important to me in this property, because it is so known for its gardens, plus the way we like to live is very indoor-outdoor, that we punched out as many French doors as we could. Again, trying to be very respectful of what this house looked like in its glory years, and its glory years were probably 1900 to about 1950 or so. So we tried to restore it to what it had been in its most magnificent years, and French doors were part of that for us. This is the powder room. I love this Argemans World wallpaper so much that when we were working in this house, I traveled to Milan just to go to their store and to see it. And so we put this wallpaper here. Then we had an artist paint the sconce shades to match it. And I've always been obsessed with the hardware manufacturer P.E. Guerin. And I have their iconic birds as the hardware on our sink. And again, you'll see, as I said, I like logos everywhere, so our guest towels are all logoed in here with the GG. And so this is the powder room. So this is the sunroom. When we bought the house, this room was just a summer room. It wasn't insulated. So we completely redid this room. You know, we made the plaster, palm trees, and the lighting fixtures, and we restored all of these diamond window panes to the size that they had been when the house was first built. And we even used, throughout the house actually, but it's most important in this room, which is practically all glass, we used restoration glass, which is a thinner pane, which is the way the glass that would have been used when the house was built at the turn of the century. That is the proper glass. So we were, wherever we could, we were being quite respectful. And then we were having fun with it, obviously. So I've always been a huge fan of Bonacina wicker furniture. I kind of worship Morella Agnelli, the late Morella Agnelli, and she used it throughout her homes in Italy, and I've always wanted to. So I took this from her. I wanted to have fun with the colors, so we went with the greens and the yellows, and again, it just feels very sunroom. And then these pretty florals that are for Botanica trading, sort of scattered throughout. We created this fireplace actually, the entire thing, and it's real and working. Then I threw in these chinoiserie food dogs on top of it because of why not. I have a love of animals, so whenever I see them, again, this is Mario Torres, a Mexican artist who does a lot of these. I have a lot of them in my house in Palm Beach, but I threw some in here too. The tiles are original to the house. We restored them. This was the tile floor that had been here from the beginning. And again, because there are so many super fans, these are things that are very, very important to them and what's important to us as well. What's beautiful about this room is that when you're sitting here, you're surrounded and you have the most beautiful view of our walled garden. And of course, the walled garden is where Grey Gardens gets its name from. It is the most important garden, you know, at the house, and you know, and a very, very iconic garden, you know, worldwide. So it's cool to be able to just sit here and take it all in, and I do that all the time. These are de Gournay lamps. You think of de Gournay mostly for wallpaper, but they also do lamps. So we have the de Gournay lamps here. More wicker, where I did Bonacina for the main seating area. I did Sewn out of London for this little table. This table becomes everything. Sometimes it's an office table for me. Sometimes when we're just a tiny group for dinner, we'll eat here. And sometimes if I've got friends over to play cards, this is where we'll play them. So this is kind of a room that gets a lot of different uses and is, you know, I'd say one of the rooms that I'd call the heart of the house. The kitchen is too, but this is as well. I often work at this table. It's a good place when I actually need to do like serious work and I can't just be balancing a laptop on my lap. I'll sit here. I told you that I love logos. All of our writing pads are logoed with Grey Gardens, but this is where I'll do designing for my brand Fig, which is, I'm always so inspired when I'm thinking about my clothing, when I'm thinking about prints for Fig. I'm very inspired when I'm sitting in these rooms surrounded by these gardens and this level of light. It really gets me wanting to be creative. I don't think I ever run out of inspiration. There's always more, whether it's this house, this gardens, my travel, wherever I happen to be, all the fabulous swans that came before us, people like Gloria Guinness and Babe Paley and Jackie and Lee, Jackie and Lee obviously have a very strong connection to this house. And I'd say that, Jackie Onassis and her sister, Lee Radziwill, are probably my two biggest fashion inspirations. Always, every season for Fig and always for myself is, what would Jackie wear? What would Lee wear? And there's something about being in this house where they spent time, where their aunt and cousins lived, that certainly is very, very exciting to me and inspirational. I'm a born and bred New Yorker, grew up, my parents' house was around the corner on Lily Pond Lane, so I've always been coming to this neck of the woods. I improbably became a fashion designer and an entrepreneur in my late 20s. And first I started with a brand that people often associate me with because it's my name, with Liz Lange Maternity, which was a line of maternity clothing that I started, frankly, before I'd even had my two children, who are now 23 and 25. It's crazy, time flies. And but today I own another fashion brand that I actually acquired during COVID, a brand that I was a huge fan of. It's called Fig, and it's the French spelling, which is F-I-G-U-E, and it's a line of women's clothing, dresses, caftans. I think it's very glamorous, and it's very much the way I like to dress these days. I found myself always wearing Fig, and so when I heard that Fig was for sale, I snatched it up, and so today I've sort of relaunched it. We've got our website, we sell to many, many stores. I'm wearing it, of course. And it feels very in keeping. My house, Grey Gardens, Fig with its sort of bold patterns and prints and colors. It all kind of connects in my mind. But I love fashion and beauty and home and anything that has to do with, style and design. So it's very fitting for me. And I think I grew up with, my mother's still alive, but a very, stylish mother who loved to shop. And I'm certainly just like her, I hope. And, and I love to entertain. So having a house like this where I can have my friends all the time is just, a dream come true. So whereas in the entry, I have the pink and I have the blue and Murano glass collections, here's where I keep my yellow one. So I kind of do it by color, by room. So this room is my yellow and green moment. When we studied images of this house, of which we were lucky, there are so many, we noticed that at one point, this room was almost a three-walled room. It really didn't have a wall here. And that was so stunning. And then we saw as it was renovated that, yes, there were these doors, but that they almost completely opened. So we wanted to do the same. So we created these extra, extra large sliding doors. So the room can be completely closed up, but also gets completely opened, which is just a really beautiful way to look at the gardens and to be in this room on the right, when the temperature's right. Just the breeze comes in, the fountain is often on, butterflies, birds, the wafting, scent of the fresh flowers. It's very magical. So from here, we can actually go straight outside. So this is probably the most famous gardens at our house, and not to be obnoxious, but probably one of the more famous gardens in the world. This is the walled gardens. They built walls here. We're basically right on the ocean here. So the walls are to protect the flowers from the ocean and from that harsh wind and the salt air. And we completely revitalized this garden area. We, restored the walls, built all these pathways. We restored the pergola. What you're seeing there is sadly the last of the wisteria. Wisteria kind of comes very quickly early in the season and then leaves us, but that was dripping in purple wisteria. And what I adore about this garden is that it comes out in levels. So one week it's one flower, the next week those flowers are gone and it's a new flower. So right now we're all about our peonies, our foxgloves, our roses are in, which you'll see over there, just crawling on the, with the ivy on the walls. This is a vintage fountain that we found and installed here. Again, the pergola, which actually served as a chuppah when my husband and I got married at the house, old Anglo-Indian furnishings, and a place where I also sometimes throw little lunches. So again, the walled garden in all of its sort of splendor, and it always reminded me of a secret garden because It's got these little doors and you don't know what's on the other side. We painted them, we created this color blue and we call it Grey Gardens blue. And you'll see it throughout throughout the outside of the house. We used it a lot. I'm taking you through here. This is a fun moment. First this is a peony garden. It stretches all the way around this perimeter and goes all the way down there. You see all the peonies. It's sadly peonies also, they're in and they're out. This is the original thatched hut. I think it was sort of for garden tools originally. We actually had to find a roof thatcher, which isn't easy to find in the United States. And he repaired the roof for us. And my friend Jonathan Adler, if you peek in here, it's quite interesting. He created this custom tile design for me inside of this hut, which is all about Little and Big Edie, sort of a surreal take on Little and Big Edie. So this is a custom tile installation that he did in the original hut. For fans of the documentary, I always like to show people that we kept where they buried their dog, and it's quite an epitaph. I hope someone says something that's nice about me when I die. So as you can see, it's from 1942. We completely took the landscaping from the top. We tried again to study the original landscape plans and be semi-faithful, semi-not. I had always wanted to have a round pool. It was inspired by the movie producer Robert Evans's pool at his famous house in Bel Air. The house is called Woodlands, and there are many shots of him on phone calls sitting by his round pool with his butler standing around, and I always thought it was just the height of glamour. We built this sort of pool/tennis house. It was all done by Accents of France because they just do the most beautiful treillage work. They did all the treillage work at the Ritz Hotel in Paris. So, you know, we designed it and they built it like this. The inside of it is meant to almost look very whimsical, like a circus tent. It was all hand painted up to the ceiling. It's a true hangout. I would say that I didn't envision this, but my 20-something-year-old kids, this is where all their parties happen. This is sort of what rocks until about 3 or 4 in the morning on most summer nights. They're in the pool, they're on the court, they're hanging here. We even have a little kitchen bar that works with it. The tennis court was here, but we completely redid it in grass because we thought that felt more beautiful, more in keeping with the property. So we've got this grass tennis court, and then we continued and had Accents of France make a treillage backboard because I just thought a backboard would be kind of ugly, a traditional one here, and it's on the side of the garage that we built. And ultimately, the fencing around the tennis court will look like it's all made of privet, but it just takes a long time for that kind of thing to grow in, and we've only been at the house, this is our 5th summer. So that's happening, but it's not quite there yet. Blue and white is really the theme of the house. It's 2 of my favorite colors, and Grey Gardens blue, as I said, is how we painted almost every gate and door in the exterior. And we even had all of our awnings custom done in blue and white for the house. I'll take you to the back patio later. This is something about the house that I absolutely adore, is the kitchen garden. We are a little early in the season, but as the season develops, we grow all of our vegetables in this garden. You know, everything from eggplants, beets, cauliflower, broccoli, our own tomatoes. Everything comes right from here. All of our own lettuces. They're just not grown in yet, and it's not quite done yet. But it will be, and we will be eating from it. We created all of this. I think there was a kitchen garden here at some point, but not at this level. This walkway, also done by us. The idea behind it was that it would be a allée of lindens, and it's sort of becoming that with all the hostas and the foxgloves, but an allée of lindens that leads to what I call the Indian garden. So I'll just take you along with me. There's always a lot of garden work being done at Grey Gardens, so you'll excuse the sort of hoses and all of that. All the lilacs are in season right now, and you can just smell the lilac. This garden was inspired by this pair of doors. I found this pair of old Indian palace doors at John Darien in New York City, and we decided to put them here and let them kind of inform the rest of this garden. So what we did is we commissioned out of India somebody to create all of this marble, the marble planters, the marble fountain, the marble furniture, and then we did, you know, all of these it's a very manicured garden, whereas the walled garden is a very kind of wild English garden. This is a very manicured garden, as you can see. And this is another place, like there's so many different areas, which is fun for me. Like sometimes I'll throw a luncheon or a dinner right here. And as I said, we had all of our awnings created for the house. So this is just, again, another fun moment, because I just wanted things to feel kind of surprising, yet I think in keeping. This leads right to the indoor dining room. So when the weather's good and we're eating inside, often the French doors are open and you can feel this garden, which used to have nothing here. When we first bought the house, this was just sort of dead land, and I wanted to make sure that when we were eating in the inside dining room that there was a beautiful vista as well. And so that's what this garden is. Entertaining is very important to me. So my indoor dining room, my outdoor dining rooms, they all had to be kind of perfect for me. The first thing I did is I got somebody I'm a huge fan of Vladimir Kanevsky, to make me all of these porcelain flowers for the house, and he worked with my landscape designer, and he knows, so that he was using the exact flowers that do exist in the Gardens of Grey Gardens. So these were all custom for the house, even the little cauliflowers, everything custom, everything clustered here. The original fireplace, again, Thanksgiving, we always have a fire going. We do a big Thanksgiving here. I covered the walls in turquoise silk, and even the ceiling as well, because I love covering ceilings. You'll see that throughout the house as well. And then we had a painter paint all of the molding beneath in this faux tortoise finish. And then of course, there's all this drapery work. The drapery actually continues here. You know, I thought about putting a pair of doors here, you know, either French doors or sliding doors, but then I realized I like the whole house to be open. I want to feel light coming from every single direction, so I didn't even want to close this off. So that was a decision I made. This is kind of cool. This pair of cabinets, this and this one here, they match. These are original to the house. We restored them, but these were here from the Big Edie and Little Edie days and before that. I am a huge fan of circular dining tables. It's my favorite because it lends itself to one conversation, and I don't like entertaining in a group that's bigger than 10, and I like it around a round table. So this was quite deliberate. This table does get bigger. It can be a very big oval for family holidays like Thanksgiving that we do here. But generally speaking, when we're inside, and usually we're outside, but when we're inside, we're sitting at this round table in a small group of us. I have 3 dogs. They're not all represented there because some of those, they're not here this morning because they would have been too wild. But my dog, Betty, my late dog, Rosie, and Betty is a golden doodle, and we have Betty, we have a Frenchie named Scotty, and we also have a British cream golden retriever named Barney. So we are dog people. So moving on, another detail that we did actually, before we move on, you'll see it throughout the house, is even though all of the electricity, everything about this house is new, like all the guts are new, we wanted to keep that sort of old world air to the house. So we used these type of light switches that you would have seen, you know, that are more traditional than just a regular modern switch. So these turn the lights on and off, and we use them everywhere. The brass plated ones. Okay, so this is the original butler's pantry. We restored all the cabinetry and had custom hardware made for it. This is obviously our bar. Truthfully, I barely drink, but all our friends do, and my children certainly do. They're in their 20s, don't get worried. But I do collect barware. So as you can see, I collect a lot of this mid-century modern gilded barware. This is more of my, milk glass collection, the French, I think it's called Porchot. More things I've collected over the years are all displayed here. And then Vladimir had made me these huge other cabbages, and I have them up top. Of course, I'm born and bred New Yorker, so can't go without my New York Post. Everything has to be logoed, so our cocktail napkins are as well. I collected these shell plates and thought they'd be fun to put on the walls. The walls are lacquered, another shade of blue. Blue is a huge theme in this house. I want it to be very rich. It's combined with one of my favorite Schumacher prints. Very happy, very fun. And as you can see, I even papered the ceiling because I like wallpaper. I always like to consider every detail. And I don't think ceilings should be left bare. So this is the original butler's pantry, and we use it now as a bar and a place to store all my plate collections and my glass collections. And so I have so many different plates. Just so you know what's behind things, I always like to put a display plate in front so I know what's behind it. Love these. I am obsessively collecting little salt and pepper cellars because I like people to have them right in front of them when I entertain. So a bunch of silver ones, a bunch of different ceramic ones, a way to quickly fill them. It's a lot, and all of these cabinets are filled with more of this type of thing. We completely created this kitchen. This was where the kitchen was, but it was two kitchens. Back then, believe it or not, this is gonna sound so politically incorrect, but there was sort of family kitchen, and then behind it, I think, is what they would call a servant's kitchen. So it was two smaller kitchens that we made into one big one. I knew how much time we were gonna spend in the kitchen, so I wanted it to be a bright white, and blue, of course, because I love blue, happy room where we could just all hang out. So whether we're sitting at the island, whether we're sitting around this table, you know, we're always kind of here. Even I sometimes entertain and here, and we sit here and we just set up all the food right here like a buffet, and people just help themselves. I'm crazy about plates, so I had this big collection of Ginori plates that I also bought at the Ginori shop in Milan when I was last there. So I created this, I guess I'd call it almost a hutch, so that it could store all of them. And we use them, but we also display them. Wallpaper, which with the matching fabric as a drapery, we created this sort of area here. It didn't exist, the room stopped, and we sort of bumped it out so that we could really feel the kitchen garden and just the land in general, the outside when we're sitting here at this table. And what's nice is when you're cooking, you could just go right outside and grab whatever herbs or whatever vegetables or lettuce, whatever you need right there and bring it right back into the kitchen. So this is a room that we just live in. These are those sewn out of Britain chairs that we had painted this custom blue color to match the wallpaper and the fabric. You know, we are all about food at my house. There's one thing that if you come for dinner, you will not leave hungry. I am like all about abbondanza. And so I keep out these snack jars during the day. I'm very lucky. People always ask, like, how do you keep these here and not eat all of them? Snacks like this do not tempt me. They're just not my thing, but they are so many of our friends' thing. My children love them, their friends love them. And I really wanted to create a house that felt a little bit like, you know, a little honeypot where all the kids would want to be. Because it's funny, when your kids are younger, you're kind of going out of your mind. And then when your kids are older, you'll do anything to have them around you. So I love having the kids here. And so I do all these things to make it very conducive. So these are our candy jars, our snack jars. I like to be super organized. So this is how I keep sort of wine and water glasses separate. I see some must be in the dishwasher. But you know, that's behind here is all of that. I keep collections of napkins, you know, so many of them, white ones, colorful ones, it's here, blue and white ones, because I'm crazy when it comes to tablescaping and table setting, so I just want to have all the stuff right at my fingertips. Every bathroom is considered, even the one off of the kitchen, with this, you know, kind of vine leaf wallpaper and a fun little ceiling sconce that I found. Everything, I like everything to be cute looking. This is the flower room, because of course when you have gardens you have to have a flower room. So as you can see, we do a lot of arranging in here. We've got the deep sink for when we bring in the flowers, and just, you know, crazy amounts of vases everywhere. Because this house is very much a flower house. I can quickly show you if you want. that it might be messy, but I keep a lot more of the candles and the things I use on my tables when I set them in here. So this is where we do all of our summer entertaining. Like, this is set for dinner tonight. This is actually our brand new fig linens, which I'm really excited about because I'm all about different linens every night. These are our new lamp shades that go on top of the self-lighting recharging lights, so love those, all fig. So this is the way I would set up for like an evening. This is for friends that are coming over later for dinner. I have it all set up. Weather permitting, we'll hang out over here, have a few drinks before dinner, walk over to the table. I have fun when I'm setting my table, so I just like to mix things up. This is a very matchy table, but you'll often see me with a tablecloth that has nothing to do with the napkins I use. I always entertain as a buffet, so I like to set out big plates and then just tons of food. I'll usually take those blue chinoiserie items off of those two tables and I'll put food there. Maybe I'll take that round table that's down there and I'll pull it up here and I'll put more food on that, and people can just help themselves. And I just have fun with tablescaping. I'm always doing different colors. Like, I love the blue and white with the pinkish beige. I love the bamboo silverware, just different colors, different prints, different patterns. I want my tables to look very unexpected. I found these, they're kind of getting beat up, which I love, also at Arjuman's World in Milan, and I brought them back and we wired them and hung them to light this table at night. These are House of Jansen. He was a well-known decorator, vintage outdoor chairs. I've got tons of them, so I can make this table as big or as small as I want, depending on how many I'm having for dinner. So let's go upstairs now and I can give you a little peek of all our bedrooms. So this is actually the original landing. One of the things that I love most about this house is I don't often see a second floor landing that's done this way, sort of a rectangle around the staircase. I find it very beautifully laid out. As I mentioned, I got many different artists to give me their interpretation of Little Edie and Big Edie. So these were done by Luke Edward Hall, and you'll see like little cats, little nods to Little Edie and Big Edie. Mark Gagnon, this is Big Edie. He did this paper mache, and he also did Little Edie. So we tried wherever we could to nod to the history of this house. I think that's important. So this is the primary bedroom. This is where my husband and I sleep. Like so much about this house, I really wanted the feel of the gardens, which the house is so famous for, to be felt throughout the house, particularly on the inside. So, we picked this paper with these beautiful flowers, and we really just wrapped the room in it. That was my vision, that the room should be completely wrapped in it, from the drapery to the ceiling to the walls. The bed is custom. We even painted the motif and the colors onto our end tables. And in the entry of the room, we painted it onto this chest of drawers and created this little circus tent feeling in the entry. My collection of glass continues up here, this time in green. So this is all this, Italian Murano glass, but green for this bedroom. The fireplace works. We restored that completely. So this is a seating area we created, just a place to hang out in the bedroom, plop down. I also love that from these windows you see the walled garden. In this room you kind of have views everywhere. So if you look straight ahead from my bed, I see the walled garden and the pergola. But if I walk over to the side where we restored this original balcony, I see the pool house, and then I see all the way to the beach. It's not as clear of a day today as we'd like it to be, but you really do. This house, in fact, was on the beach. It's steps from the beach. Sadly, the Beals at some point had to sell off their one little parcel that was on the beach because they ran into hard times, to say the least. But this house basically borders the beach, and you really feel it up here, and you feel Georgica Pond, which is such a beautiful vista. So this is my husband's office. So you're thinking, what's interesting about that? Well, not much, except that this is the room that the entire documentary Grey Gardens was filmed in. So if you are a fan of that film, you know that, and it's shocking to people when they come here because it's actually a very small room. So this movie, basically, there were two twin beds, one here and one there, and Big Edie slept in one, and Little Edie was often in the other, and the Maisels brothers stood in that corner, and they filmed the entire thing. This is where they famously ate corn and cat food. Sadly, because this was one of the only rooms that was available to them, because so many had either been burnt in the fire or taken over by raccoons and animals. I mean, the house was, about to be condemned. So this was the room. And since it was known as the yellow bedroom, in order to be respectful to that, we chose a shade of yellow, and we did the whole thing in sort of this, more of this marigold mustardy yellow. But this is the very, very famous, iconic yellow bedroom. So when people come to see the house, this is the room that they most want to see and that they are most shocked by, because the room appears much bigger in the documentary. My husband uses this as his desk, but also in the documentary there is a famous scene in the dining room. That seems to be another room that was available to them, sort of. It's a mess. This was their dining table. This was in the house when we purchased it, so we refurbished it, and my husband uses it now as his desk. So this was the infamous Grey Gardens attic. It was basically inaccessible. I think you kind of like opened up one of those trap ceilings and a ladder fell down. It was referred to all over the documentary as infested with raccoons. You couldn't really be up here. But we restored it completely. We connected it to the house with a proper staircase. We tried to make it, I think, kind of glorious. Like it's this green and white moment to feel like a garden with the hand-painted walls. We kept the eaves of the roof exactly as they were. First of all, because we wouldn't be allowed not to, but I also think it's pretty. And I just kind of took the idea of green and white and went wild with it. So we're standing here, and then if we walk, there are some really pretty guest rooms, and it's kind of become like a favorite place for guests to sleep, actually. This attic bedroom might be my favorite bedroom in the whole house. I started with the idea that I love this Benison wallpaper. I'm a huge fan of it. They made it for me in this apple green, and we blew up the scale, and then just continued the theme from there. But I liked, signature for me, I wrapped the room in this wallpaper and just went nuts with it, and with green and white as a theme, even down to green and white candies. Every bedroom has candies that correspond color-wise. And some guest amenities, because I like when friends are staying here for it to feel like a hotel. I want all the amenities there. I want them to be able to see the Wi-Fi password right away, to understand how the television works, every little thing, even down to custom suitcase stands for them. So that's kind of the way I run my houses. Some call it crazy. And so this would be an example. So now we're going down to the basement. What's interesting about the basement is this house had no basement. We actually were able to lift up the house, dig out the entire footprint of the house, and create a full floor basement. So we were able to put, some of the ugly stuff, like the mechanicals, some of the necessary stuff, like a gym, a laundry room, a wine room, extra storage, some bedrooms. But one of the things that I think is most fun on this level is the screening room that we created. I knew I wanted to have a screening room. I knew the kids loved a screening room. I know we'd have fun in a screening room, but I didn't want it to look like a screening room because that's kind of tacky to me. I wanted it to look just like a living room. So I think we did a good job. We created this sort of Moroccan fantasy, I call it. You would never know it's a screening room, but it functions really well. Like, these chairs are so comfortable. You just lie back. And this is actually, as you can see, there's a projector, and the screen comes right down from the ceiling. So when it's not in use, it's just another room to hang out in. I think doesn't feel like a screening room, and that's what I love about it. So this is sort of, as I said, my Moroccan fantasy screening room. So many people think that I bought this house because it's Grey Gardens. And sure, the history is incredible, and the amount of people that have lived in or visited this house is very, very cool. But really, what I love about this house is it is so reminiscent to me of the houses that I knew growing up. This is the East Hampton of my childhood that is mostly gone. My family's weekend house was just around the corner on Lily Pond Lane. And this is what all the houses look like. They were these big, shingled, gorgeous, sprawling summer cottages that had been around since the 1800s. But sadly, since then, and again, that's whatever anyone wants to do, but most of them have been torn down and replaced with these sort of newer, sort of McMansions, drop from the sky houses. And this was a house that still retained its original look and feel, hadn't been destroyed, is in the most, in my mind, perfect location in East Hampton, my favorite part of East Hampton, the Georgica area where I grew up, so it's just what's most familiar to me. So really, I bought this house because I loved the house itself more than what the house represented. Like, I like what the house represents, but I love what the house is. And when you're in this house, and it's really hard to explain, you almost feel removed. Like, you feel like you're in this magical garden and you don't even know where you are. You don't feel the other houses. You don't feel the hustle and bustle that has become the Hamptons. You just feel this serene tranquility of the gardens and the old style architecture of this house, which I think is very beautiful.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.